Welcome to yet another episode of WhickTV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Today, we're going to be talking about socialism and liberalism and if they're compatible. Are socialists a threat to liberalism? If so, which ones? Are there any good socialists? If so, which ones? We're going to talk about it. So I'm going to pass the mic first to Shenandoah to tell us, first of all, what is liberalism and why you think socialists or socialism are a threat to it.
Hey, Ryan, I
Go
love you.
ahead. There you go. Start us off.
Thank you. So I'll just provide my own ad hoc definition of liberalism. I take liberalism to be a worldview centered on agency maximization, protecting individuals' ability to make self-directed choices. And I take socialism to be a worldview centered on egalitarian maximization, seeking to equitably distribute welfare throughout the society, principally through the collective ownership of the means of production. And I think these two worldviews are basically incongruous with each other, and that even if socialism is won democratically,
No,
it would still
that isn't
have
him,
to
Resident.
dismantle, if not outright destroy, the pre-existing liberal society, which allowed it to be elected democratically in the first place. And for that reason, I consider socialism to be a threat to the liberal order.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Irrelevant, what are your thoughts here?
Uh, yeah, so I broadly agree with Shenandoah. The thing I would expand upon is that a lot of the current momentum behind socialism, I believe, is directly antagonistic to liberalism and liberal values. So I would say, the mainline people who are pushing socialism being very anti-liberal also is a compounding issue. So, but I otherwise entirely agree with Shenandoah.
We'll get into it. Okay, Charlie, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so to be honest, I don't know. And I'm mostly here because I'm interested in maybe talking through these ideas and my own ideas, but I do kind of feel like at this point, I think that liberalism has failed as a project, I suppose. And I feel like we have two choices. We can keep going down the techno-feudal route, which we have now. Not to equate liberalism and capitalism, but I do feel like, the free market is kind of a part of liberalism. I don't think capitalism can function or does not currently function without receiving socialism from the government at the moment. So again, I think we have two options. We can go the socialist route or we can go the techno-feudal route, because I think that liberalism I think it's failed.
Liberalism has failed. Okay, that's a bold stance. We'll see how that goes. $20 from Audacity to say socialism is a self-correcting problem. Eventually, they just starve. Thank you for those $20. Soy Pill, what are your thoughts? Has liberalism failed? Is socialism a threat to it? What's going on here?
I don't think liberalism has failed as an institution, period, insofar as, like, just because we lost the election. My answer to this is it depends on what we're looking at. What Shenandoah defined, I think, was a little vague, if not extra super charitable, to one of those ideologies. Maybe we can elaborate on that more. But I think it completely depends, because when you poll people on socialism means either, hey, let's move towards the Nordic model and let's move towards the European progressive tax and redistribution model, which I'm 100% for, and I think is not a threat to liberalism. I think it would benefit if we were to use those sort of talking points to lift up the Democratic Party and actually, if anything, integrate them into liberalism. But it also means the tankies. It also means the people who are going to be, insanely want to revolutionize, seize the means of production, abolish private healthcare, abolish all private property. And I think that is obviously a threat to liberalism for two reasons. One, because just it's incompatible with liberalism, but two, because it polls incredibly poorly, especially among older voters. So you're just going to sabotage the Democratic Party by being the people talking about socialism and giving it the weight that term has. So I think that we should be moving towards, a more progressive Nordic model. If that's what we want socialism to be, I think we should do more of that. I think that in the way that the most prominent people are talking about it, especially like a Hassan, we're not compatible with liberalism. In fact, it is a huge, huge detriment. So.
Okay, and with that, the floor is open. I guess other than Hassan and things like that, let's move away from the more extreme kind of Mike from PA examples. Um, is a socialist such as like I don't know, Straighter Aid or Boy, are they a threat to liberalism? Why or why not?
No, not
Well,
Econoboy.
I mean,
Econo is
Econoboy is not really a threat to anybody. No offense.
Yeah,
Like,
it's probably the least threatening man I've ever
I mean
seen
his
in my
ideas.
life.
I mean his ideas. Okay.
well, first of all,
No.
Boy is retiring, so he's a threat to no one, unfortunately, and rest in peace to a real one. But if for like of all the socialists you could have picked, Boy is maybe the most reasonable, like soft, like hey, this is how we can get from our current model to what you guys both said yesterday is pretty much capitalism with extra steps, because the only real difference is that we own the means of deciding where the wealth goes, but it's still some sort of like free market distribution of the wealth. No, he's absolutely not a risk. He's just having an incredibly reasonable take on how to get to socialism. Straighter Aid, my understanding is she's a Marxist Leninist that wants a revolution and is willing to lie about it, but that's a very limited exposure to that. So is that everyone else's idea
I
of
think
what
I just
she
heard
is?
Straighter Aid.
Straighter Aid is.
I don't know who that is. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
It's
you guys
Pisco's
don't know who it
co-host.
is for now.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna
Wick
say, I don't
wanted to-
really know Econoboy's position myself, but the only thing that I remember that's relevant is I think Straighter Aid doesn't believe in private property, which would be pretty
Much more
antagonistic
extreme,
to like
yeah.
liberal views. Yeah.
And you can't lump that in with Boy, because even if he doesn't agree with it, first of all, he says like 25% of it has to be privately owned, even in his ideal system. But also, he's like, here's the soft way we get to that over the course of decades. And Straighter Aid's like, yeah, let's revolutionize and like kill all the landlords or something like that. I don't want to put words in her mouth. Can someone actually inform me Straighter Aid's actual
I
position?
don't think Straighter Aid wants to kill the landlords. I could be wrong. I haven't heard that. I don't know.
Okay. Well, we don't have to use specific names and throw anyone under the bus. We can just talk about the concept of, people that want some sort of revolution and abolishment of private property, like I said, are going to be double-edged swords of...
Let me try it this way then. If we don't want to talk about specifics, we could talk about the general state of the Democrats. Some people are saying or seeing, and me included, more and more kind of pushes to the left towards a more socialist agenda from certain people within and without the Democratic Party. Do we think this is good for the Democratic Party? Do we think this is a threat to the Democratic Party? Do we think there's opportunity here? What are our thoughts here? Let's gin up the discussion.
I mean,
okay?
again, I feel like this is it's necessary. It does.
When you
seem
say
that-
it's necessary, what do you mean?
I don't think that they can win without pushing some sort of, like socialist policies. It doesn't have to be entirely socialist, but I do think that things like, universal health care, I think it's time. I do think that kind of pushing the promising more of the same. Well, it didn't seem to work too well in 2024, but I do think that, like, I don't know. I do like the Nordic model, and I think pushing towards something like that would show it would just be successful. It would be a successful tactic.
So there's been a couple of times during this discussion that we've talked about the Nordic model. Do we all agree the Nordic model isn't socialism?
Yeah, because I don't
It's
personally
not
think it'd be
fully.
socialism.
It's like it has social. It's capitalistic with some socialist.
Yeah,
features,
I
I
just
would
consider it
say.
like a liberal society with a really strong social safety net. Like I'd even say that like Econoboy is almost on the edge of like the most social democrat I've ever heard of, Where it's like he just wants an insanely fucking strong social safety net, but he still wants private property and markets, and so that's not like inherently illiberal. Like I wouldn't say like you gotta fucking like black bag Econoboy or something to save so like liberal society. I don't believe that's necessary.
Well, okay, if we're all in agreement that like Nordic model or any sort of like semi-progressive populist ideas such as Medicare for all or just like lifting all workers up or unionization isn't socialist, then I would firmly fall on for this discussion the side that yeah, socialism is like super poison to liberalism and it's super poison to Democrats' chances coming up because the people that are going far past that, so like your Hassans or straighter aides, like these people are absolutely turning away far more voters than they are even getting to vote because their own constituency they don't even encourage to vote that hard. So when it comes to actual elections, they push away the people who hear their more extreme rhetoric, who are going to vote, especially the older people, and then they don't even galvanize their millions of viewers to vote. So yeah, it's like on both ends we're getting bled out and hemorrhaging from these people, and I think either they need to adapt into more liberalistic views or they need to step aside and let people with more popular views get more popular and have a bigger platform.
Well, Charlie, you said something interesting that you don't think we can win without going more left. Does everyone agree with that?
I mean, I'm a
Can't
Georgist,
win.
so it's like a yes and a no. So it's like, like, yeah, do I think we need better housing policy? Do I want to see us like gut rent seeking from the economy? Yes, and like to a lot of people that would be moving more left. But am I like a huge fan of like decommodifying housing? Not particularly, no. Like I still want there to be like a private market in housing, even if I want like, state building of some housing just to like price fix in the market. But I don't know. That's my honest answer. I guess maybe a little bit more left in some ways. But also in other ways, I wish Democrats would like cut some fucking taxes and like actually create a pro business economy.
Um, I would say that. I mean, on some policies, yeah. I mean, certain things pull well for like certain policies. Like, there's been some surprising support, for instance, for Mamdani amongst people on the right, which, you know, even with people like Asmongold saying that, like, yeah, Mamdani has some pretty good policies on some of these different things, and that he would want to see somebody like that. Um, but I mean, really, I just think it comes down to like charisma. I think we just need more charismatic, like political leaders, more than we need to like move left or anything. We just got people with no aura.
With no aura. Who's the most charismatic person we got right now in our lineup, in the Democratic lineup?
I
Okay.
like uh what's his name? Pete. I like Pete.
Pete
But
Buttigieg.
yeah,
Okay.
the only problem that I genuinely believe with Pete is that I think that
Gay.
there would be issues with him being gay. I think some
Yeah.
people would be like, I don't know. I don't know. So I could see that like potentially
Yeah.
hurting him. Other
Can't
than
run
that,
a third woman.
Can we
And
talk
that's gonna
about
be a fucking
Mamdani for
problem.
a sec? Because as someone who actually does like the way he speaks and a lot of what his policies are, although some of them I'm not super on board with, from what I can tell, obviously he's very popular in New York. But even in New York, when you poll voters on like whether or not they would support a socialist candidate, like straight up socialist, which I don't think he identifies as, right? He says he's a SOC Dem or DSA former member, or if he's still a member of that,
Let me check.
by a plurality are still not in support of socialism as that word. So now that we've firmly moved on to say that like, hey, socialism is not just a Bernie progressive SOC Dem, not an AOC, it's further left than that. I don't see how this is anywhere in the realm of what we're looking for, especially if Mamdani isn't even crossing that line. And I think the DSA or the more socialist people have already kind of like gone back on him, and they're like, oh, he's not left enough. Am I wrong about that?
He is a
I thought
member
he
of the
called himself.
Democratic Socialists of America, so I don't know. It'd be hard for me not to say he's at least socialist adjacent. I don't
It's
know.
weird because, like, with democratic socialists, a lot of them end up governing as social democrats in practice. Like, for example, Clement Attlee from the UK, like, he was elected as an explicit democratic capital S socialist. And yet, like, what? He fucking nationalized British Rail and, like, created the NHS? Like, he didn't literally socialize all production. And this happens a lot with a lot of people who call themselves democratic socialists. And I think people like Mondani, AOC, Bernie, they're probably in reality just sock dems, even if they're like, for some reason, they decide to like fall with the label democratic socialism, which I have no fucking idea why, honestly, because it just sounds more poisonous than calling yourself a sock dem.
Interesting enough. I don't know. It's Oh, maybe I booked this wrong. I was hoping to get more like socialism defenders in here, right? I was hoping Charlie would be
Yeah.
I mean,
our
listen,
big.
I am a socialist defender. It, I'm gonna sound a little bit. I'm gonna expose my ignorance slightly, but okay. So if we do feel like capitalism is kind of inherent to liberalism, I mean, when I say that it's failed, I feel like we certainly don't have a truly free market. The government does regulate business quite a bit, but also we have so many industries and corporations that we do not allow to fail. Like, again, I don't know if you guys would agree with the sentiment I've heard on the left before, where like there's socialism for the rich and capitalism for the poor. um so again, I just feel like I think that I think liberalism and socialism, both, if they were pure, are beautiful dreams, but it just doesn't seem like we're ever going to get either of them in a pure sense. Do you know what I mean? Does that make any sense at all?
I
Yeah,
don't.
that,
Yeah, go ahead, Irrelevant, please.
yeah, that makes sense to me. But I would say just because capitalism in its current form hasn't gotten to not even perfection, but to a place where, you know, in the example you gave, uh, big businesses are allowed to fail that might be like critical to like the way that we live our day to day life, just because some of those things might be the case recently or even presently. I don't think that's an argument that it always will be. And I think we can look to, again, other models like the Nordic models to kind of illustrate that there are ways to make businesses kind of play a little bit more evenly. And I think that those models are pretty good. I think those are sustainable long term. And I would just want that. I think that's a pretty sustainable one long term.
Any other thoughts on this specifically?
I'm still
Come
a
on,
little hung
guys, let's
up on
get to the
Charlie
next
saying that like capitalism has failed. As someone who like hates the way that our current system works and that it exploits people overseas and that allows the wealth disparity we have, I still don't see it as a failed system. If anything, maybe like we'll get to some sort of late stage capitalism where, we truly do have a failed state. But to see it as this like we failed and we need socialism to fix the wrongs, and here's the ideal of what's going to fix that, but also we've never seen it before and I don't know how it's going to change anything. Like I'm not fully bought into this, because until someone can fully red pill me on socialism as a solution to our current issues, I don't see how that's a better way forward. I see it as only a detriment that's going to embolden the right wing and the people in the middle. So
Okay,
Yeah, I
I
pretty
prepared
much
for this,
second that.
gang, but go ahead.
Yeah, I pretty much second that. I mean, obviously, yeah, I don't want to go down the path of socializing all the means of production. I think that's probably like not going to be great for the economy, and probably like most likely just going to end up in the socialists who try it getting killed, like it happened in most of history when socialists often do that. And yeah, no, I don't think it's a very good idea, and I definitely don't think the liberal system has failed in any like existential sense. I think
Well,
there
we
is
could say
definitely a
that the
need for an
liberal system's
update.
under attack, right? Couldn't
Yeah,
you
like,
agree
and
with
I do
that?
believe there, yes, and I do believe there is definitely a need for like a strong update in the liberal system. Like, liberalism needs a new theory of cultural governance. And again, obviously, like, I'm a Georgist, blah, blah, blah. But, like, yeah, I don't think liberalism is definitely like finished for sure. I mean, it's obviously like still chugging along quite a bit. And right now, I don't see any alternatives that aren't just regurgitating the failures of the 20th century, but in a more like pop, postmodernist formula. Like I'm just not fundamentally impressed that there's anything actually that new or useful.
One of the things that I'm concerned about is I see more and more on the right. J.D. Vance recently called himself a post-liberal. What do we think of that, gang? What are our thoughts on
Well,
post-liberal
He's
MAGA?
going to prison in
that's
my
kind of
country.
what I mean, and this is going to be half baked, and I apologize for that. I guess in like the techno feudal sense, where Jesus Christ, I read Techno Feudalism by Yanis Varoufakis. I don't know how to say his very Greek.
can you get
Where he
closer to your
talks
mic,
about
Charlie?
like
It's a little quiet.
what?
Can you get closer to your
Oh,
mic?
my bad, my bad. Yeah, I can do that. Let me turn off the. Actually, let me not turn off the sound buffer because I have a fan going. Um, where the fuck was I?
Techno-feudalism.
In the sense that, like, again,
Feudal.
since the 2008 crash and whatnot, like the banks were bailed out. Would you consider like bailing out businesses like that to be socialist in nature, or is that, again, what I mean is I just feel like, I don't know, when JD Vance says post-liberalism, I just think we're moving towards, I don't know, authoritarianism.
Well, we are on the right-wing side, but in terms of the banks being
Yeah.
bailed out, I wouldn't call that socialist, only if you just say any sort of redistribution of government funds is socialist, but also that's like a capitalist intervention of a free market to correct for a egregious market failure, and then they also paid all that money back because they were loans. So I wouldn't call that socialism or post-capitalist or something like that. If anything, it's kind of built into the model. But that's kind of the point, is that we are moving more authoritarian on the right. They're able to radicalize even moderate voters against the left, because they'll platform these more crazy people who like are hanging out with terrorists, who are saying kill all the landlords. Although like the more radical actual socialist, far past what all of us agreed are good policies, which is like the DemSoc European stuff, and say, look, this is what the left wants. So the more that we allow those more radical people into our party, it's emboldening these authoritarian people to take power away from what otherwise would be a fair, liberal, more egalitarian society. That's why I think it's not a solution or something we need to move towards right now, even if I do agree that, yeah, we need more progressive populist policies, because those speak to more people and they're vastly more popular. But that's not, I guess we've all agreed, socialism.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I don't really think DemSocs are like fundamentally threatening the liberal order, you know?
I do think that there
Right.
is people who are using that term though, and calling themselves these more softer terms. Well, look at the Hassan. Did you guys see the interview NPR did with Hassan? You guys see that?
No,
I haven't seen it yet.
No.
Yeah, I haven't seen
I
it.
don't really
No
watch or
one.
pay attention to
I mean,
Hassan.
NPR is like liberal propaganda, and I'm not like fucking. I don't need any more of that in my diet.
Okay, so no one watched this thing I'm about to refer to, so you're gonna have to take my word for it. But basically, like the way that Hassan talked about who he was made him seem like the most liberal, DemSoc kind of guy, just a normal dude, just some progressive values, and he wanted to like help Democrats get it together and these things. This kind of infiltration, for lack of a better word, is something that I am concerned about in the Democratic Party. I think there are people like Doobie, who's going to come in and help save this fucking panel in a second, right? Do see like more extreme. They say that as Charlie did, that Democrats cannot win as they are, and they need to go towards more radical solutions, if you will, radical standard bearers, different people. Like, I'll just ask you directly, Charlie, who do you think should be our standard bearer in the coming midterms in the 2028?
All right, like as a politician.
Yeah, as a who should well, and influencer, who should be our star influencers, who should be our star politicians that are actually running from these positions? As a
I think that
socialist
you
on the
can
panel,
have
who would you like to see?
like, all right, so I'm sorry I'm not bringing the heat. I've been a little bit, I don't know how to I don't know if this is a proper, if this is the proper term. I've been a little bit black-pilled lately, in the sense that I'm just like, God, we're never going to actually get socialism. Um like it's just never going to happen, even though that is what I want. I've been trying to be a bit more realistic, but I don't think that necessarily it's bad to have someone like Hassan who does, kind of put pressure on politicians to push for more, progressive socialist policies. That doesn't mean that the Democratic Party has to, embrace everything he says and does 100%. I think it would actively be in their best interest to court him in some capacity.
So, Charlie,
I
I was on your side like a few months ago, but especially now that, like what Wick is saying, where he's going on these interviews and he's saying, "Look at me, I'm a liberal, I'm a soc dem, I'm a progressive," and even people like my mom who are like completely checked out of online politics are like, "Oh, have you seen that really big social progressive guy?" And she's talking about Hassan because now she's seeing him in the New York Times and in NPR, but then you get clips of him at that like speaking event where he says, I think the Democratic Party, which I hate, is a useful tool for me to subvert and like infiltrate, like Wick was saying, to use to get to my view of what needs to happen, which is a far further left thing than maybe not you, but at least what Shenandoah, Irrelevant, I, and Wick want. That's all that needs to happen to poison the entire well for everyone else. Because as much as I want Hassan to mobilize his voters, and I've chewed him out for not saying like, hey, like get your million people audience to go, canvas like a Vosh or a Destiny, which he doesn't do enough. Now anyone can just take a clip of him being like, hey, look, here's a radical lefty. He's lying about his views whenever he says they're less radical than they are, which he's now admittedly done. And he's going to turn off so many voters. Like for his audience doesn't vote. And the people that see that are going to be turned off from the Democratic Party if he is all courted by them, which now I'm like, okay, this guy needs to just kind of disappear. If we're going to use his platform and his audience at all, it needs to be, subtle, like, hey, like go tell people to vote, but absolutely no, you should not be speaking to the DNC because look at what you've now said on camera, which is I'm going to use the DNC to turn them radical, which is insane.
I mean, but like, what are the? I feel like the consequences of turning people like him away would be greater than trying to work with him, because in many ways, the things that he says, like, oh, I'm going to work with them so that I can make them more radical from the inside, might be the only way he could get, his audience and also other like far left people to get interested in voting.
Right,
And mind
but
you,
you
I
got to
agree 100%
quantified. Can he
about
get more of his
canvassing.
audience than the people that will be turned away from those clips of him saying I'm a radical and I'm going to try to reform from the inside, but not reform, like I'm going to totally subvert them, which is very different from like I want the Democrats who are not even close to progressive enough for me to win so that I can push them more progressive. He's like, I want to push them super, super, super socialist. If you could show, I mean, this is hard, but like, it looks like the majority of people who vote, especially older people, are the ones who are going to be turned off by hearing that sort of thing. And the younger people who are more favorable to socialism, who would be mobilized by Hassan saying, hey, let's go vote in the Democratic Party to push them more left, they don't vote. So if we're just quantifying like what helps the Democrats win the next midterm, which wins the next election, it looks like it's not Hassan in any way, shape, or form.
I mean, it's very likely not any internet influencer, but yeah, it's definitely not Hassan with his audience being like all young people and socialists who just never fucking vote. Yeah, I just
But I mean,
second
I
that.
didn't even hear that Hassan saying that, and I like to feel that I'm like
I
fairly
just DM'd it to you
online.
on Discord.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No. What I'm saying is, Soipel, I fully believe you that he said that, but I also am like as someone who is a leftist on Twitch, pretty much all Twitch leftists are like Hassan orbiters who just regurgitate everything that he says, and I follow them. A lot of them are nice people and do sometimes share their own takes, but I follow a lot of them on like Twitter and I pop into their streams, and I've never so like me not being exposed to that when I'm have connections to so many Hassan orbiters, I'm wondering how much people know about like him in general beyond like what your mom said was like, oh, that big handsome guy. uh
Right, but also that's the thing is he's not currently part of the DNC. He's not working with the Democratic Party. And if he were to especially become like in the same way Charlie Kirk is the biggest like youth kind of outreach person on the right who is now so mainstream that South Park is talking about him, CNN is doing stuff on him. They're going to start doing that on Hassan, but from the right-wing view. And rather than just being able to say, "Oh, this is this crazy left-wing guy that's not part of the party," he is then part of the party who's working with them, and they're going to use those clips of him saying, "Hey, I am infiltrating the Democratic Party" to make it crazy and socialist, which is a poison word to the people that vote that I want to vote for us. So that's
Right.
why it's not helpful. That's why like
But
if
I
he
mean,
I think you're thinking about that totally. I think you guys are thinking about all this totally incorrectly. So one the Hassan thing really quickly, and hello everybody. I think that you're right in that yes,
Who's
there are
this
things that people can
frog?
take out of context or people can use to attack him, right? Because he's on stream 8-12 hours a day or whatever the fuck. And in that time, he's gonna say things that can be taken out of context. Or he might just say dumb shit, or he might make a joke that's in poor taste, and that can be used against him at some point down the road. Like absolutely. But this is a problem with any streamer being pushed into mainstream politics. I think we saw a bit of that with Destiny, who was pushing into mainstream politics, and I think he recently had like a CNN interview thing. And I think
Hassan
if
and
he,
Destiny both had one, so yeah.
yeah, and I think with him, he has the same issue, right? He's done and said a ton of things that are going to be very objectionable to the average person. So I think Hassan also has that issue. It's just a
Right.
streamer
But
thing, right?
sorry, what do I call you, Doobie? Or I was just about to say Frog. Doobie.
Yeah, you can comment too,
So
that's
there's a
fine.
big difference. I agree with you completely. This idea that like everyone's going to have this baggage. Obviously, Destiny's
Yeah.
got a lot. Hassan's going to have, like the 9/11 jokes. Any of these people will be in some way able to be clip farmed. In the same way, like even if Democrats were perfect, Republicans would find a way to find the worst thing they've ever said, kind of out of context, and blow it up everywhere. Because we saw that with Kamala. She didn't have that many bad takes or bad clips that they were able to completely demonize her. So that's not the issue. The issue is when their explicit goal, not out of context, like very explicit goal is, hey, I want to use these people. I hate them. I hate the Democrats. I hate the Democratic Party, but I'm going to use them because they have a platform to get my goals, infiltrate them, and push them farther to the left. Not in the same way, like I said, that we want to do, which is push them towards SOCDEM, but to literally make them more extreme and radical like him. That's a
can I
complete
just
different
ask,
thing.
just before you respond, Doobie, and I'm going to let you respond just this, but I don't know if, well, I don't want to push us further left. I think we should tack towards center. Does anyone?
You're the problem,
disagree?
Wick. You're the problem with the
We're-
Democrat
I
Party.
feel
Actually,
like we keep
you're the
trying
reason
that,
the
and
reason
we
the Democrat
keep
Party is lost.
failing.
Yeah, like what do we need to do that's more center, Wick? Because just to be
Yeah,
clear, and I
like,
said
what-
this on a Gibbs panel a couple days ago, when I'm watching these more progressive candidates, like Ro Khanna is out in South Carolina, and he's talking to these, Bible, Southern Baptist, like black leaders who are mostly going to vote Democrat. You hear what the way he talks to them. It's not, hey, I don't like LGBT people. I know you disapprove. Let's not vote for the Democrats or let's abandon LGBT people. It's, hey, I think that you guys didn't feel like you were spoken to because people like were doing all this woke stuff that felt like it was marginalizing or getting rid of the other people. So
And you
let's
know
talk
what
about
that
more
is?
broad policies. And those more broad policies are actually progressive. It is technically moving left, even if you're moving away from the like,
It's not
hey,
moving
they,
left.
them stuff.
That's tacking to the center because you can have progressive policies but still tack towards the center and things like that. We have to recognize. Well, Pete Buttigieg did it perfectly, I think, right? In one of his more recent discussions that he got a lot of heat for, and simply just acknowledging that there are people who have legitimate concerns with, like, say, trans people in sports. That
That's a center move.
is tacking towards the center, right? Do you not agree?
I understand what you're saying. If that's the way we're defining it, then I wouldn't disagree. But
Yeah,
when
I
you say
disagree with that.
tax center, like that plays as like, hey, let's court Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney like they did in the last election, which was one of the
Liz Cheney and
stupidest
Dick
thing
Cheney
ever.
aren't center, they're right.
Right, but that is the move towards the center. It's like, hey, center people, I know you think we're crazy radicals, but look, Republicans are on our side. Like, hey, like let's move more right on immigration. They might have to. Let's move more right on economy. I mean, even Shenandoah said, let's cut taxes. Right, that's a rightward shift. Being a little less, changing your messaging, but doing a more progressive thing, which is advocating for healthcare for all people, but not calling it like, hey, let's make sure all our black people are getting healthcare. It's, hey, let's make sure everyone can. Even though that is a more progressive policy, your messaging is more pandering to a populist message instead of targeting specific demographics, which Democrats were doing.
But we do agree, and you just agreed right there, that we kind of have to tack center on immigration. I think
on messaging, maybe.
Well, I think just we have to just recognize that borders are important and we need to control them to some extent.
But we never did that, so that's not tacking center. No one was advocating for open borders. Biden was advocating for a greater border crackdown after his mistakes.
But to say no one wasn't is just a mistake.
The Democratic Party
Kamala
wasn't.
The Democratic Party wasn't at all. Like correct me if I'm wrong, but did the Dems not push a bill that was going to have like drones patrolling the border, which would actively be more effective than
Are you talking about that bill?
You're talking about the
that was,
bipartisan
that
border
was
bill?
shot down?
Yeah, that was shot down. Like,
I don't remember if drones were in there, but it was for more equipment for drug screening. It was for more processing agents. It was for a limited number of people coming over the border compared to what they had before that.
And oh, sorry. Was somebody else going to speak? Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I do think Democrats have generally moved away from like the open border stuff. I think that was probably most popular during the Hillary run, but honestly, since then I
Hillary
really don't
wasn't
think
pro
it's
open
been a thing.
borders. And I
I'm
mean,
not saying
I don't
she
think
was.
anybody, I don't think any substantial group of people in any party has been pro open borders like ever. Like maybe the Libertarian Party, maybe, right? But I don't think the Democrat and Republican Party have ever had a substantial portion of their voter base that is favor that policy, like ever. But just really quick, 'cause I want to tell you guys why WIC's a problem, okay? Before I respond to the other thing that Soypil said. So WIC, I think
I'm
that
here for it.
the argument that I've heard, and to be clear, I'm not a registered Democrat, right? I'm not a registered Republican either. To be clear, I voted for both parties, depending on which candidate I think is best over the years. The argument that I've heard, right, and I think it's true, is that since Bill Clinton, the Democrat Party has abandoned the pro-labor New Deal roots of the party. They've abandoned the worker, the average person, and they've embraced this like corporate neoliberalism thing. Right? They did this with NAFTA, with welfare reform, like embracing these massive super PACs, the financial deregulation that they did, they're fucking the embrace of the high defense spending, the fucking resistance to universal health care, even though it's an extremely popular policy in the party and in the country generally. Like things like this they've done for decades now.
Could
I
you
think
elaborate
pulled
on
them
some of
away
these,
from-
Doobie? Sorry to interrupt, but like,
yeah,
why are
I'd like
Democrats'
to get the-
resistance to? Okay, sorry, make the point. My bad.
Yeah, I can totally do it. I would just like to give you the summary first of why I think this, right? So I think that since Clinton, especially, maybe before, but I haven't researched before, but definitely since Clinton, I think the Democrat Party has pulled toward the center and even toward the right on some issues, right? I think that the strategy seems to have been that if we are leftist, quote unquote, on social issues, not even all social issues, they were opposed to gay marriage, if you guys remember, until the Supreme Court forced that through. So if we're like lefties, quote unquote, on social issues, we can keep the lefty side of our base, or the base that cares about that, happy, and just push toward the donors and get more and gobble up that money long term, and just keep doing deregulation, keep pushing toward the center. And then when that doesn't work out, the knee-jerk reaction seems to be to blame the left for not being energized and not coming out to vote for them, to blame the youth who are being fucked over by all these policies from both sides of this equation, for not being energized and not wanting to come out and vote. That seems to be what the strategy has been, and it's what we're seeing again right now. Right. So rather than encourage the Democrats to push policies that energize the base, that energize the youth voters, you guys bitch that the youth don't come out and vote. Like, of course they don't. You guys aren't giving them anything. You guys aren't promising anything that gives them any hope. We see over time that the home ownership here in this country is declining. Everything is declining. Everybody's doing worse off than their parents were.
Wait.
So,
So
like,
what kind of
eventually-
policy fix says that?
Wait, hold
what
on.
kind of policy fixes the problem?
Can I push back on this?
There's
a
a
little
not
ton
bit?
of
leftist.
policies. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, but what it is though, the policies that would
It
fix this
absolutely
are
is.
hold on.
But it
With
makes
the
it
policies that would fix this are policies that are going to be called socialist policies. Policies that AOC, Bernie Sanders, Hassan, all these people, Mamdani, all these
Hold on.
people
What policy
support.
that they have proposed fixes the housing crisis?
Hold on. The housing crisis is a little bit more
This
complicated.
one you brought up about
on.
can't afford homes. Let's go.
Hold on. That's one thing. I don't know
Okay,
if there's
but
any
you
polls.
were the one
but-
that brought it up. You said that leftist
I
policies
understand.
Wait.
fixes this.
Oh, hold
Doobie,
on, hold on,
Doobie,
okay,
let me
hold on,
help you
really
on this
quickly,
one
really
and then
quick.
push back on the other
Hold
one.
on.
Because Wick, I would say that the policies that AOC and Hassan and all these people that would make wealth more equitable would make eventually that people more able to afford homes, even if it's not directly addressing the housing crisis, which might be solved by building more houses. That's a completely different thing. But I have to ask Doobie though,
just
like,
really quick, because I don't want Wick to feel like I'm avoiding that question, right? I'm not aware of any specific policies that are popular, right, among the country, among the base of either party that are like specific, like to deal with the housing issue. I think Soypil is right. The other things that Democrats have proposed and leftists, quote unquote, have proposed over the years would put more money in people's pockets and make them more able to afford a house. But I don't know if there's any like specific policy solution that's been put forward other than Kamala's, which I think was okay, but I don't think it was very popular.
okay,
I don't want to talk out of my ass, but isn't the issue with housing right now that a lot of like corporations are buying a shit ton of houses and
Not really. That's not really the issue.
that's part of the issue.
is
It's mostly zoning and the fact that they're not
regulations.
building enough,
Yeah,
and there's a
it
bunch of
is-
regulations.
It's
But
zoning and it's land. Like, just fucking simple.
But Doobie, the idea that Democrats have been shifting rightward in all these ways. I mean, I understand the certain embrace of like corporatism that does exist in this neoliberal area. But like, I mean, Joe Biden being incredibly pro-union during his tenure, shifting leftward on all the social policies, trying to like Kamala's like housing policy, environmental policies, all of these have been leftward shifts. Even like Affordable Care Act, like yeah, you can say it wasn't far enough, but like that's far beyond anything we would have gotten under any other Democratic president. It was pushing to the left, and if you read like how that got passed, we scraped by, able to pass as left as it was because we had to compromise with the more moderates and with the right. This isn't the Democrats moving right. This is them dragging people to the left over the course of the past like 25 years. And to say that like, oh, we're blaming the youth. Like, I'm not blaming the youth. Like, yeah, the youth doesn't come out and vote, and that sucks. But I don't think you can lump in what we're saying, which is, hey, people like a Hassan are going to be poison to the people that do vote, and they're going to get turned off when they see that, versus an AOC or a Bernie, who are actually really popular, not only among their own party, but even among certain moderates. They hear Bernie and AOC, and they're like, yeah, I really do like these more populist things, which is to your point, which is, yeah, we do need to talk about things that are going to energize these youth and say, hey, look, we're going to, raise all your wages. Hey, we're going to make sure you have enough jobs. We're going to make sure the economy works for you. Like these kind of like more populist messages that these newer candidates are saying, that is what you want. That is the radicalization of the youth, or energizing of the youth.
Yeah, and to be clear, and this is you mentioned something that I was going to get to, which is the way that they had to pass Obamacare. They when they went to that, right, when this was initially proposed, the goal, I think, was universal health care, right? Some kind of single payer system, right? And then before it ever got to the floor, it was picked apart by lobbyists, by them needing to make deals with groups to pull along moderate Dems like Wick, by the way. And by the end of that, what we got was better than what we had before, but it was nowhere near what got him elected, what got the Democrats out of that energy under Obama. It was a softened policy that was actually built to fall apart eventually, and we knew the Republicans were going to pick it apart when they got into office. So this is what I mean. So the issue isn't that the leftists didn't do that, right? The moderates did. Right? So the Democrats should be trying to excise the moderates from the party and to push these people who are essentially Republicans on those issues.
Moderates are a much bigger faction of the party.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah,
far bigger faction of the party.
Wait one second. I don't mean just like there's people like Manchin. I think was it Lieberman at the time, if I remember correctly.
Lieberman was during the Obama years, yes.
Yeah, who these holdouts who tanked this legislation that would have made the lives better of the vast majority of people in this country, right? They weren't leftists who did this, right? And the willpower to push against these people, to rake them over the coals, to try to come up with some way to force them into the right side of history.
How?
It just isn't there from the Democrat Party, because a lot of these people are purchased by these corporations, which is why the Obama administration was making deals with the pharmaceutical companies before they even got to put into the bill together.
Doobie, when you say force these moderate Dems, which do exist, and by the way, are representing a constituency of people that want what they're representing, and also they had to court the Republicans too. They couldn't do this with a strictly Democrat vote. What was the plan here? Like to strong arm these people into voting for.
I think you need to pull support from these people. I think that if the party needs to strong arm. Hold on. What I mean is pull support from them entirely. Make it clear, hey, this person is acting against the best interests of his constituents and against the best interests of the country.
Leftists already don't support us. They've pulled all their
I'm not talking about leftists. I'm talking about people like Manchin, people like Lieberman, people who tanked this legislation that would have made the lives of their constituents better.
Who's pulling the support from them? Because it's not the leftists.
The Democrat Party.
Leftists don't support them.
No, I'm telling you, the Democrat Party. The party itself should have pulled support.
It sounds exactly like the Hassan net negative thing that we were talking about, where it's like, yeah, if you like are appealing to the Hassan people, you are ultimately going to appeal to a smaller faction of the party that ultimately votes less. And it's like, yeah, the Mansions are quite popular where they come from. Like, frankly, I mean, yeah, I don't think I always fucking agree with them, but like, yeah, for sure, it's very hard to be a Democrat in West Virginia these days, and Manchin does pull with his constituents.
Yeah, he's in a purple district. If we pull support,
Democrat in West Virginia by acting like a Republican. Yes, I get it.
Well, no, he's acting like a moderate, to be clear. He's not acting like a Republican. Yes, he's acting farther right than what we want, to be clear. And like, don't get me wrong, I don't like Joe Manchin, but what we're saying here now is if you try to pull support for Joe Manchin, which I agree, I wish we could primary him with like a progressive, but the progressive would never win in a Joe Manchin area. It's like impossible. So that's like
progressive. It
Okay,
doesn't
but who
need to
does it
be
need
a
to?
Hassan figure or an AOC or anything
Mo-
like this. It doesn't need to be that far to the left. You just need somebody who's willing to work with a policy on issue who's not going to be bought up by donors, right?
But that's the thing is you're
Lieberman took
assuming
like
that Joe
$2 million.
Manchin is bought out in this way, that like if his constituency all is telling him, Joe Manchin, you need to vote for this, and he says, no, fuck you, I won't, but then they never vote him out. It's more of his constituency, which is in a purple district, is like, hey, I think this stuff is a little too left for me and I don't want to vote for it, which is why I'm voting for you, Joe Manchin, who kind of holds that line in the center. Now, I don't like that, but I don't see how the Democratic Party strong arms him into being more left if they can't get those voters to vote for someone more left. Yeah, we can try to convince people in that district to move more left, who would then elect a more left person, but we can't strong arm him by removing the funding and then getting a Republican elected, because then it's like on all the other bills that he would vote left on, now we've got a Republican in that seat. That's kind of the point, is like, I don't get me wrong, I understand the idealistic version of, I wish we could just be this weird Trump strong arm guy and just say like, I'm gonna fucking primary you if you don't, vote for my bill, but like the Dems don't have that power, which is why we are only able to get the ACA.
Just real quick,
Hold on,
hold on, I'll let you go in a second, but to Soypill's point, MAGA did that in 2022. They took all their moderates, they primaried them, they got big extremist MAGA people in there. Guess what happened to almost all of those candidates in the general election? They lost. They lost, right? They tried to do what Doobie wants to do with the left, right? And we saw the result. It didn't work. Why would it work for us when it didn't work for them?
And the Democrats doesn't have like a cult in which they can organize such a push out. Like there's not some supreme leader figure which could like be like, you too moderate, get out. Like there's not somebody who could do that to Joe Manchin.
Out of curiosity, I'm thinking
Joe
about
Biden gets way cooler.
two policies that I thought were fairly progressive and were also a pretty good compromise that were pushed by Biden and the DNC, which were again, like the Affordable Care Act, which I do think is going to the restrictions on it are now way more intense, or will be next year.
We kicked a bunch of people off with BBB or whatever.
Yeah, and then also the SAVE plan. And as someone with a lot of student loan debt, I really loved that. I was like, you know what? Maybe it's not forgiving all my loans, but if I do my bestest for 20 years, then it's all gone. I would love that. That would be great.
So to be clear, though, the working class hates student loan forgiveness.
Yeah, they should.
Is that true?
They should.
Polling? Is that true?
They should hate it if it's not paired with free college. They absolutely should hate it.
Yeah. Because they feel shafted. They feel like their taxes are paying for other people's college.
Okay, well, do you know that a lot of working class people go to college?
Yeah, but a lot of them don't. And again, I think something like that is going to be extremely unpopular if it's not paired with something to make it more fair in the future, i.e. free college, which is what we should have, which is a socialist policy or a left policy, quote unquote. But to be clear about the Manchin thing, so I think that the issue that I have.
But did you guys think that they like Dems lost support for that? Like, were those significant, progressive policies that they like lost them significant support? Because it does seem like that wasn't.
I don't think the ACA lost support, but
to be honest, I don't think a lot of people even know about like these various things. I think we do a really bad job on the left of shouting out our wins. I think we do a horrible job of it.
I agree. Yeah, we do.
Well, one of the reasons we do a horrible job at it is because there's a group of people who are incentivized to lessen our wins. And it's not just the Republicans, it's the people on the left. Because the whole leftist strategy, the Hassan strategy, is to say the Democrats are failing you. Therefore, you have to replace them with us. And by design, their whole incentive structure is not to prop up the Democrat wins. It's to minimize them because they want to leech off Democrats, right? They want to take the positions from Democrats. They're not taking it from Republicans.
I mean, I agree with this.
And that's why it's so poison to us.
Kind of a part of the reason why I was a soft, alignment on socialists being a threat to liberalism is if we consider somebody like Econo Boy, who kind of pushes for like a mixed economy, to be a socialist, I'm not sure I would consider that person a threat to liberalism. I would ideally not like any kind of forced like ownership of really anybody for the business, including the workers. But ultimately speaking, like if we're on that line, if we're at like full Nordic model, and then there's popular democratic support for like 20 or 30%, whatever percent of the workplace owned by the workers, like I don't think I'm gonna cry over this. And that's somebody I think I can work with politically, is somebody like Econoboy, if we consider somebody like Econoboy a socialist. So kind of for me, I kind of wanted to step away from like Hassan, who like Soypo brought up is just like the most radical example. I want to bring up like just like a normal level-headed socialist.
Yeah,
Right.
just to be
Like,
clear,
Like, do we think that guy is a threat to liberalism?
like I would have a lot of disagreements with Econoboy's policies, and I often do. Like we do have arguments about like what we actually think are good for is good for the economy. But like I at least think like Econoboy could be like a representative of a party in a liberal democracy, and it wouldn't be like weird. You know, that would be fine. It wouldn't be existential to the existence of that liberal democracy. But I think anybody who advocates for like forced collectivization of like capital or something, yeah, I think that person is probably a threat to liberal society. And I think
No,
that
that's silly.
person that's silly. Why you don't think like
Yeah,
like
it's
the
silly.
forced expropriation of like the means of production isn't like a threat to one of the fundamental values of liberalism, that being like the ownership of
No,
private property?
I think
No,
that
that's
no.
like kind of in the statement.
Well, I can yeah, I
I gave you an easy
understand.
one.
I understand what you're saying, but I think that so Econoboy, and I hate that we're getting away from the mansion point, but I'll circle back around to that eventually. But Econoboy and people like I think you guys mentioned Schrader or Aaron earlier. These people are incrementalists, right? Hassan is an incrementalist, which just means that as these policies become more feasible, more practical, we should move in that direction because eventually, due to like things like automation, AI, the abundance of resources, clinging to capitalism, quote unquote, and clinging to the private ownership of essential goods, essential things that people need to survive, is going to be unsustainable. Right? It doesn't make any sense. It practically, morally, it just doesn't make any sense to allow these people to hoard the wealth in this way when it's so easy to generate. Right? And this is why things like UBI have become like talking points recently. Right? Because eventually, and I think we're starting to see that with the progress that AI has been making, this rapid progress AI has been making. We are going to get to the point where these policies do become practical, more practical than not having them.
I
No,
mean,
So
I
at
just
that
have to,
point, it
I
would make
agree with
sense.
just to
you.
say three simple things. Like I don't think Hassan's an incrementalist. I do like UBI, and
It's
I
silly.
don't
Why do
see
you
how
think
what
he's
you
an incrementalist?
I don't see how what you just said isn't like a threat to liberalism still. Like you're basically just saying like I'm saying that like a key point of liberalism is the existence of private property, and then you said we should abolish private property without actually addressing the point that that would be a threat to like liberal society.
Well, Shen, if I may, I mean, to be clear,
Yeah.
like there's that video, and I don't know if I shared it with you too, but it's like of Hassan saying how he wants to infiltrate and use the Democratic Party. Like the difference between that and what I want to do is actually kind of not that far. It is technically incrementalism insofar as I don't like what the Democratic Party is currently doing. I want them to be further left, but I know the only way to do that is to elect them and then push them through incrementalism. The difference is once you're there, the people that can actually do stuff like that is much more likely to be someone like me or a Econoboy who has maybe a reasonable way to push us towards either something like what I want, which is less radical, or what Econoboy wants, which is way more radical. But Hassan is like, hey, here's all of these clips of you being insane and radical and talking to terrorists and having just the absolute worst rhetoric on this at all. So even though you say and what you're trying to do is incrementalism, you have no chance of doing that, and you're hurting the Democratic Party, which is a very different story.
If I could
but we
just clarify
okay.
really fast, Soypil, I'm sorry. I just want to jump off that. I actually do agree that if that is Hassan's plan, that would be a form of incrementalism. Even though I think like his ultimate state of society would not be achievable with incrementalism. I'm just like one of those people who have the hypothesis that Hassan just kind of hides his power level a little bit, and that he just isn't actually an incrementalist, and he just says that because he's like
That's delusional paranoia. There's nothing to support
Yeah,
that.
wait, hold
That's
on.
delusional
Well,
paranoia.
Shen, I mean,
Yeah.
he's not hiding his power level. He's very explicit about how radical he is, and he knows that he can't just like go out in the streets with the Hassan audience and like
I know.
do a
I'm
January
just saying,
6th.
like, I
So
think
he's
he
an
would totally
incrementalist
support.
insofar as he's like, well, I've got to
Well,
once the Democrats are
Right, I'm just
elected,
saying
I will.
he would
Yeah,
do a January 6th is what I'm saying. Like if he could, like he would
I don't
want
think
to.
there's
like,
any
maybe
reason
if
to
he
think
could,
that.
but it's
Like,
irrelevant.
I don't know why you guys say this. It's so
Can
silly.
I
There's
be a
nothing
little
to
bit
support this
crazy?
whatsoever.
Can I be a little bit crazy?
You are the woman on the panel, so yes.
All right. Well, like I'm someone whose my ideal world aligns far more with Hassan's. I might even be a little bit further than Hassan's. However, you can have those ideals, but be very, very realistic about, what could actually be achieved. And
Hold
so I,
on. You're gonna have to clarify that for me, okay? So your your ideal world is further left than Hassan. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't actually know a lot about his beliefs, but
Okay. Well, before
I'm
saying that,
really
I
into
would
the idea
look
of
it up.
communism. I love it.
Marxist Leninist enemy Charlie. Fucking
Yeah, a little
there you
bit.
go.
but
Are you
that's
hold on?
like
Are you a Marxist Leninist?
not Leninist, just Marxist, I would say.
I don't think Hassan is a
really
Marxist
fuck with
Leninist.
I don't really fuck with the USSR. Um, uh, but in fantasy Goo Goo Gaga land, where life is beautiful, yeah, I think Marxism would be great. But this is not fantasy land. This is the real world, and you have to be realistic about the kind of world that we could have. And so, I think Sock Dem is realistically what I would
Well,
be. And
Charlie,
I think
to be
people
clear,
what?
I mean, I would be like a radical eco-terrorist if I thought that like being an authoritarian, crazy communist would save the planet. But I know that's not even like close to anything that's worth advocating for.
Yeah.
So I don't call myself that, because it's like if you actually believe in Marxism because you want to get there, that's different from like, oh, this like idealistic is very different from a realistic thing. So there's like not even a point in calling yourself that at that point.
Well, I'm having a bit of an identity crisis at the moment, okay? It's been I'm not even kidding. It's like
You're in
it's
the right
been over
place,
the past
actually.
couple of months. I've been having like
we're
some
gonna
like
move you. We're gonna move you from the Marxism.
deeply
Okay, we're gonna make you more
upsetting
liberal.
feelings. But the thing
We're
is
gonna-
that okay, like listen, there's a
Hold
lot
on,
of
hold on. I just want to make this clear, Charlie, and then I'm gonna give the mic to you. Charlie, our goal right now, then, well, at least my goal, is to liberalize you. We're gonna make you into a proper liberal woman. But here's the mic. Go ahead.
Gross.
Ew.
That sounds like a fetish.
Crazy.
I don't like that.
Yeah. I'm
I'm
scared.
sorry. Like, I don't like that.
It's crazy, bro. I would
okay.
say. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
But like my point is that I think sometimes people can, like many politicians, say things that they would ideally like or that they think would appeal to their base, but the things that they actually push can be very, very, very different. And again, I don't know enough about Hassan. I don't really care about the guy. Maybe I should. But like I don't get the sense that he is like this deep threat to the DNC, because I don't think he's actually going to try to make it. I don't know. I don't think he's
I think you
pushing
should watch
for
his content,
Marxist
like unironically.
Leninism.
I feel like most people who say that he's like a violent revolutionary or whatever actually haven't engaged much with his actual ideas and his
Well, I
content.
didn't say that. I don't think that at
No,
all
I'm
about
not
him.
saying I'm not saying that you do. I'm saying that
Oh,
some of
okay.
the other people here seem to think that he wants like blood in the streets or whatever, and I don't think that's true.
Did
I mean,
say
I've
that.
literally seen the clip
Well,
of him
hold
being
on,
like,
Wick,
"Let
you're
the
a streamer.
blood of
You know,
the
hold on.
Yeah, those
of the
are
landlords run through the
Like,
streets."
Okay, one at a time. One at a time.
Wick, you're a streamer. You've done this panel thing for a long time. You've been on panels where people said crazy shit offhand as a joke, right? That they didn't mean. I mean, you had Destiny on.
Well, hold on.
And
Wait.
hold on,
Doobie, if you look at the
Destiny
context
regularly
of his
pretends to be a
views and how he
pedophile as a
feels
joke,
about
right? And
how he
we don't
feels.
think that's true. So like, why do you guys pretend that everything Hassan says?
Wait,
is bullshit?
Doobie, because if you
You are,
look at
though.
the way that he jokes about, let's say he was completely joking when he said, "Let the landlord's blood run through the streets," but you look at his like policies and his views on landlords. In context of that, it's not that hard of a stretch to say, okay, this guy hates the even concept of private ownership of housing, and like absolutely despises and thinks these people are leeching. And it's like, okay, well, maybe he would want to kill them all, versus like, well, I don't know, actually, has Destiny had any interlocutor things with like a minor? Maybe he like jokes about it, but
He answers that, I need to read this super chat and then I'll let you answer. $10 from Satan. Okay, thanks, Satan.
Oh, shit.
They say, amazing streams, Wick. Nothing has more cemented the truth that liberal Democrats run interference for extremist lefties, leaving the right as the only ones left even trying to conserve liberalism. I don't know what that second says.
That guy's mentally ill, and I'm sorry.
True.
That guy you need to refund that guy's money because he needs it to go to therapy.
The right
Oh,
is
I'm
hardcore
sorry.
pushing back against liberalism in every way right now. They're getting very, very authoritarian at the moment. I think we're all a little freaked out by it, right?
I wish there was like the neocon right still around defending liberalism with like blood and sword, but nah, they ain't around no more.
But $20 from Audacity to say socialist programs are what we should aspire to if we are doing well. If prices are down, the debt is manageable, and we've got a good grip on the border, social programs are feasible. Bake cake before adding frosting. Thank you for the $20. And I do want to give Doobie a chance to answer Soy Pill's questions, though. Go ahead, Doobie.
Okay. You lost me with the Satan thing. What was the question, Soypill? Like, what was? Can you just sum it up?
I think
for me
when
real quick?
Hassan calls for the blood of landlords to run through
Oh,
the
okay, I
streets, I
remember.
think,
Yeah,
in the
I got it.
context of how he views landlords and how he talks about them, it's not that far of a stretch to say that that might not just be a joke.
Okay, but this is what I mean. So I agree. It seems very clear, right? Everything I've seen debates that he's had on this, right? With not just Sesame, but other people too. And I've seen things where he's like talked about the Sunstream long form, and it seems very, very clear that he thinks it is immoral to own a house and to rent it out to somebody else, to be a landlord, right? He thinks that this shouldn't be a thing that we allow in our system. I agree that long term, he'd want to get rid of that. He'd want to say that you can't be a landlord, that you can't just, leech off renters, right? Like I do. I'm a landlord. So, but I don't think Hassan wants to kill me, right? He
You're
has a
one of the good
family member.
ones.
He has a family member who's a landlord, right? It just seems like he's saying in his ideal world, he thinks that should be the policy, that we don't have landlords who own hundreds or thousands of units that they're selling out to people, and raising the prices every year so that these people can barely make ends meet. He thinks that's an exploitative system. I think I agree with him in a lot of cases.
Yeah, sure.
And he thinks ideally that wouldn't exist. But I don't think he would say that we should go out and murder the landlords, right? Even if there was a possibility that this would be a popular thing, I don't think there's nothing that I've seen from this guy, right, ever that indicates that he's okay with just going out and murdering civilians or people.
He made a clip recently where he said, I think someone should just do it. And we all know what I mean by that, right? In reference to, again,
Yeah.
violence against a certain
I mean, but
person.
Hassan
Wait, who was the
He's
person?
okay with
Nice statement that
political
says, "I
violence.
won't
It was
Hold on,
it was
who was
in
the
reference.
person?
Hold on.
It was in reference to
Nothing-
Donald Trump, in reference to Taylor Lorenz's video on someone should do it.
Yes. And I mean, we
Okay.
know
I
he's
don't-
okay
that's
with
Donald
taking
Trump.
out people
I
he
think
thinks
it's a
that are
very-
immoral enough.
That's Donald
Yeah,
Trump.
I think it's a very
Hold on.
plausible
Come on, Wick.
interpretation to believe that
I mean,
like
a lot of
Hassan is
people
like
have
okay
been
with
saying
I don't
that.
like. I
I'm
don't want to
not
get too
gonna lie,
edgy,
I've been
but I
saying
don't
that.
disagree with him.
Okay,
And it's something.
I
Okay,
do.
like,
I think that
I think
again,
it would be
once
beneficial.
you say that you're okay with doing political violence to someone that
We're all
you
okay
think
with
is
political violence.
immoral, you can extend that, and it
It's
often
not just immoral, Wick.
happens that they extend
I can't
that.
believe you're whitewashing Donald Trump. He's not just immoral. You think he's a fucking fascist who's destroying the country. I agree with you, actually. So saying, oh well, I just think he's immoral. No, that's not the thing. The thing is that he's actually dangerous to the country.
No, Wick doesn't disagree with you,
destroying
Doobie.
millions
Wick
of
just
lives.
thinks that
Disagree, but
killing
I'm
him
saying
would
that
be a
Hassan
bad
sees
thing in the
landlords
long
as
run.
a similar threat.
Hold on, wait. What'd you say?
I'm saying that Hassan sees landlords and capitalism and other such
Capitalism,
things
sure.
as similar threats, as a threat just as bad as Trump is.
Okay. I don't think he sees landlords as bad to be as bad as Trump. Maybe the concept of a landlord, sure, but I don't think he'd see like an individual landlord, but like, oh, this guy's as bad as Trump, whose policies are leading to millions of deaths. No, I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true.
I don't know. He said the way he speaks about these things, it's very clear that he is okay with political violence.
So are you. So am I. So is everybody. Wick. Everybody's okay with political violence in some cases.
Doobie,
Okay with
if you're
people
not
because they disagree
scared,
with your politics.
if you're not scared of Hassan's anti-landlord rhetoric, then why are you a frog and not your real photo?
Hold on. Ironically, it's because people have been trying to dox me for a very long time on both sides, all sides of the aisle. Okay, and I'm a business owner, a filthy capitalist who's retiring this year. I'm selling my business this year. Congratulations, me. And yeah, it would be very difficult or inconvenient for my business to be out there and people finding me.
I'm just giving you shit. But
to
be clear, Doobie, the idea that like we're all
yeah.
okay with political violence, yeah, in some contexts, everyone is. The problem is if you say, hey, tomorrow someone should do it in reference to Trump, this is very different because no matter how bad I think he is, I don't think that's the best solution right now because I do think there's still a way that we can change this electorally. And if we jump to the, hey, even far past January 6th option, and even if it has succeeded, I think we're in a much more fucked place in the long run because it's going to radicalize.
Let me ask you a question, Sweatpill. Let me ask you a question. So if that could, I'm not going to say specifically what, but if that could happen, and I apologize for my gardeners being loud. If that could happen, and you were guaranteed no long-term negative political fallout, okay, would you really not press the button? Like, let's be real.
Okay, if your question is if I could Thanos snap evil out of the world, the answer is yes, but the problem is we can't. So like, yes, in this magical hypothetical world, yes, I wish evil people would disappear, but it's not how the world works, unfortunately.
Okay, I think with you. I think it would be bad if that were to happen, actually. But there is an emotional part of me that wants to say it should happen, right? And I think that's all that is. I don't think we should take it that seriously, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
because people have been saying that all over the internet, and I feel like maybe we've all
I wouldn't
had
want them
that
in any
sentiment.
place of
Like,
political
I think it
power
would be
either.
Yeah, of course. That's what
Right?
that's.
Like, I
I mean,
think
I
it'd be
agree with Wick. Like,
beneficial
that's going to
if
alienate a lot
most
of
of
people.
most of our elected representatives got some kind of ass cancer and died. Okay, I think that'd be beneficial to the world. Most world leaders actually. I think it'd be better if we just replace these fucking vultures, these old vultures who are fucking up the planet. But not realistic. I get it. So whatever.
One of my
So I
friends
don't.
linked me a VOD of Hassan encouraging his viewers to vote and going through like the Los Angeles voting pamphlet thingy. I don't know, I don't watch him, but
Yeah, he does encourage his viewers to vote when he agrees with things, right? But the issue that people are upset with him about is he didn't explicitly go out and say, "Hey, you guys got to go vote for Kamala, right, over Trump."
Yeah, and he
Um,
has millions of people he could be mobilizing for canvassing, for door knocking, for all these other things that other streamers will do, and he
Yeah.
doesn't do it.
If Hassan did what Destiny did, he would have record numbers. He would have record
Yeah, I agree.
breaking, like
did
nation setting.
Destiny have people like out there?
Okay,
He had people
He had,
canvassing
he
in
had an
2022.
insane
Yeah.
number
Yeah.
of people, and he is a
Okay.
fraction.
Yeah.
Well, he's like,
Yeah, I
you
think.
know,
I mean,
so
he definitely
I agree with that, but I
mobilized
think
to move things.
So I
Yeah,
agree with
that'd
that,
be cool.
but I think that we're kind of running into a problem, whereas that we are saying that he shouldn't be involved and we should actually excise him from the party or whatever. But
Absolutely.
maybe he should canvass for the party.
I don't
Like
want him to canvass for the
for him
party.
to do that, you need to
my
pull him in
point
and then encourage
is,
him to go
if
do
he
it.
was a more political or more effective political actor, he could be like a significant deciding
Yeah.
factor in a lot of these like senator and house elections. It could be a very big deal. Like,
Right.
very, very big.
Wait, and I want to
Like,
piggyback
so-
off that, Doobie, just because what you're saying is like, oh, this seems like we're talking out of both sides of our mouth. On one side, we say excise. On the other side, hey, you need to help us. So for a while, my position was, hey, Hassan really needs to be mobilizing his audience more in the same way these other people are. My problem now is there's enough of his radical rhetoric that's going to be used against us if we were to platform him like at the DNC as a speaker. If we're to say, hey, this is who's representative of the youth of the Democratic Party. So we can still do that. What happens is he has to become incredibly more pro-electoral, and he has to tone down the rhetoric and become like more of an Econo boy, if that is something that we're going to now be using.
I don't think
to
it's
canvass.
possible.
Well, if it's not possible, then I don't
that's
think
the
we should
reason why we
mess with
don't
it.
Actually,
think he should be,
so
like,
Soypo, I think,
the guy who
and
does
this I'm actually curious about this. So I don't think any streamer, literally anyone, right? Destiny, Hassan, Vosh, any of these like really big political streamer people, I don't think any of them should be the face of any political movement ever, right? There's just too much baggage on all these people.
The face, sure,
I
yeah.
don't agree with this.
So
What
and
about like Dean
Hassan,
Withers?
no, Dean Withers
Dean
is
Withers
weird as fuck.
soy, but I
No,
don't think he has
he's
like
weird as
these
fuck. He has a
crazy
weird little
skeletons in the
pen thing.
closet. He's soy
He
as fuck.
looks neurotic as fuck. He's creepy. No, it wouldn't work out. I'm sorry. And give
Who?
him he's hold on. And he's new to streaming. Give him a
He's
few
some big
years.
TikTok debater guy.
Give him a
But
few
like,
years.
you could
he's
say
gonna
you could
have
say he
he's
ain't got
gonna have some
aura,
kind of
but
scandal.
like
Have
we're
his
talking
own.
about skeletons in the closet.
Yeah, to be fair, Charlie
No,
Kirk could
yeah,
do
but
it. I mean, a lot of
but
these other
again,
people
he's
could do it.
new to okay, so irrelevant. If he continues on and there's no scandals, no issues come up other than he's a little bit weird, he's a little bit of a weirdo, then yeah, I'd agree with you. That's fine. So it's not that
Okay.
I just like oppose out
didn't
Okay, what about
streamers
like
as a
try to
class.
John
I think
Stewart?
the
What about
guy.
John Stewart?
John Stewart I think would be great.
Okay.
I think
Well,
What
yeah,
about
wait. I'm
David
not saying
Pakman?
Hassan should be the candidate. I'm saying in the same way that Charlie Kirk is like seen as this youth. By the way, Charlie Kirk has actually been successful in pushing people in the youth to the right. As much as I hate that,
Yeah,
unfortunately, the
absolutely.
TikTok farming and that ecosystem works, which is why I do like that they're doing that like unfuck America tour, trying to counter it. And you can see it's actually kind of effective because Charlie Kirk is running from all those people. But yeah, when I say Hassan could do the Charlie Kirk niche a lot better than he is doing now, especially if he tones down the rhetoric and becomes more of like, hey, yeah, I am an incrementalist. Yeah, maybe I have more realist, radical ideals. However, I understand the Democrats are the best way to get us to a better area, which is what everyone on that spectrum should be saying, including me, who's not as radical as Hassan. That I think we could use. That I think he should be doing to mobilize his audience. But he's clearly
real
not
quick.
doing that.
$5 from Audacity to say, man, it's almost like Hassan is in it for the money and clout. I'll take it. for
Yeah,
$5.
probably. I mean, like most streamers, yeah. But
Certainly. But
so
go
like
ahead.
I'm curious. So I agree with I think most of these people have so much baggage that they should just stay in their lane, which is streaming and mobilizing people to go vote if that's something they care to do. Right? I think Hassan should do that. I think it'd be beneficial. But Wick, it sounds like you think that wouldn't be beneficial to the Democrat Party if he wasn't like the face or out there giving speeches, but he was going to his audience and saying, "Hey, let's go canvass for this Democrat candidate." It sounds like you think that would be a bad thing. And you wouldn't want him to do
Well,
that.
because I don't think he would actually. So I think that his goals are to subvert, as he said they are, to subvert the Democratic Party. If he was a different person with different goals, with the influence he had, then I'd be fine with it, right? But the fact that he has specifically stated that he does not like Democrats and wants to subvert them are one of the ways I think that he's cancer, and we need to excise him from the party.
Wait,
or
can I?
But the
him
way
out
he
from
subverts
the
them
party.
matters, I think. I mean, what I think, so I saw that clip too, and it sounds to me like what he's saying is just what happens in big tent party politics, right? You have people within the party have different ideals, right? Different goals, and they're trying to pull the party toward their ideal or goal. And I think the end goal would probably be some kind of communism or something, right? But
Which
given
is
that
a
that's not
threat
going to
to
happen,
liberalism,
okay. But I think you're
and I am a
liberalism
liberal.
isn't God, okay? Sometimes we do need to soften our attachment to these words like capitalism and liberalism. And I think what Hassan and Econo Boy and people and Aaron incrementalists are pushing toward is that over time, capitalism and the incentives within capitalism are going to be so damaging to society if we cling to that system, if we cling to this private property ownership over all else, that it will actually hurt the population. It will hurt us long term. So we need to let go of some of these things and be okay with, yes, taking some private property away from the owners of this private property where it makes sense, when it makes sense.
And
I
And
wait,
I think we all
disagree
agree
with
with that.
that.
can I
I
piggyback off Doobie
disagree
real
with
quick?
that.
Quick, can I say one more thing? Which is,
Go for it.
I would fully support if Hassan changed none of his views and stayed as radical as he is in ways that I don't agree with, but was able to mobilize and be electoral in a more powerful way than the people that he turns off, which I think is possible given his incredibly large audience. If he could mobilize that youth, I'd say welcome that. I don't give a shit because, yeah, sure, once we win and he's going to start trying to radicalize the Democrats who are in power, that's when we can fight back against it and say, hey, like, if we don't like these ideas, like, we can push back. But right now, Trump's in power and fucking us in the ass. So I would absolutely, like, partner with even the more radical of the left if they're actually going to be electoral and make more people vote than they otherwise would scare off in the middle, which is what he's not doing right now. So, like, if he's able to do that, yeah, 100%. You ever see, like, World War II? That's what we did with the communists. Why can't we do it now? Then we can do the 50s and then we can have our McCarthyism era, but let's actually fucking win first.
No, I mean, I agree with Soyfield. I mean, like, we
Yeah, I
can have
agree
a
with that.
tactical alliance with, like, MAGA. I'm sorry, with not MAGA, with Socialists.
Come on, why
Or
not
MAGA,
MAGA?
Freudian
If
slip.
MAGA wanted, if you are
You just
okay
say
with
not MAGA.
socialists,
No,
if you're
said,
okay with communism and socialism, why not MAGA? If the same arguments apply, where if it helps us reach a goal, right? Why wouldn't we?
Yeah,
Well,
if
just
they're
to be
going to
clear,
help
I
us
actually think
win,
that'd be
sure.
It has to do with, like, who's the more immediate threat. Like, frankly, I think Hassan is a significantly less immediate threat than, like, fucking
MAGA, yeah.
like MAGA. And so
Yeah,
it's like in the
most-
same way that I
and
probably
wait,
ally with Hitler over Stalin.
Shen, that is what is literally happening right now. Ro Khanna made a bipartisan bill with Thomas Massie to mobilize part of the MAGA base against Donald Trump to release the Epstein files, which is literally them trying to get the Democrats to win by splitting the MAGA base. Like that,
Which I think is
yes,
great.
it is
That's
good that we are
awesome
working with
strategy.
Republicans
Tell
right
you.
now. Like,
Yeah,
if
Wick,
it
I
gets
think-
us to win.
Yeah, Wick, I think you shouldn't write MAGA off, right? Because most of the MAGA base, quote unquote,
I'm not.
is really yeah. I think most of the MAGA base, and maybe not you, but I think this tends to happen, right? We're saying, oh, we shouldn't work with these MAGA people. Is most of the space is aggrieved, lower middle class white people, right? Who just felt abandoned by the Republican Party or by the traditional politicians within the Republican Party, and they saw Trump as somebody who could save them, right? I think you're seeing a lot of the same energy on the base on the Democrat side. But I think that whereas Trump embraced these people and made himself a champion for these people, even if he's full of shit, I think the Democrats are shunning these people. And I think that's the absolute wrong thing to do.
I don't think it's hold on.
I mean,
I
I
don't
think
get shit
Biden
from the
did make an effort
Democrats.
to, like, he was
Hold on.
very pro-union, wasn't he? And he did reach out to, like, workers, but I don't think that Kamala Harris was attached to that image of Biden enough. She very much does come
She got all
off
the
as
baggage, but
more-
none of the pro stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's very
I'm
much
voice back
coastal
foot.
elite.
Look, Biden reached out. He was one of the more pro-labor presidents we've had in a long time, and labor unions just kind of didn't
Love them
vote
all.
for him.
Yeah.
They didn't give him anything for what he did, unfortunately. And this is a problem with courting communists or socialists, is they won't give you what you want. Look
Oh,
at Mike
no.
from PA. Mike from PA said if Kamala needs to choose as his vice president Mike Waltz, or I'm not voting. So,
He didn't vote for her anyway.
Kamala
Yeah.
chose, Mike Waltz, and Mike from PA was like, I'm still not voting, right? This is a problem. The fundamental issue that you cannot resolve is these people aren't telling you the truth. They are lying to you. They will never give you what you want because there is nothing you can do.
Listen, I am very much, a socialist. And while I didn't vote in the last election, that was because I moved states. Okay.
given the
And I
pass, you
moved,
get the
I
WIC
didn't move
pass.
in time. All right. I need the pass, but I voted for Biden. I voted for Hillary, even though I was like voted for Bernie in the primaries both times. So, you know, and that was when my politics were more extreme as well. Like it's not all of us. There is very much a rational, you know, young progressive base.
Yeah, and if he's
Yeah, brushing
signaling
off
behind the
socialist
scenes,
because Mike
Wick.
from PA said a stupid thing is like it's not.
Well, it's not just
Well,
Mike
that's-
from PA.
Well, hold
That's
on,
Trump.
wait. If Hassan is saying
Look,
behind the
give us
scenes,
the
I want
irrelevant,
Democrats to
irrelevant.
win to radicalize them, that means he wants Democrats to win. And if he actually
sounds
does
good.
electoral things to do that, which he hasn't in the past nearly as much as he could, then I think, yeah, let him, dude. Let the Democrats win.
Yeah,
If he
I
wants
mean,
to
like,
radicalize them later, that's a different story. But they're not.
Yeah, I
they're
mean,
not in
I'm
power.
totally. Yeah, I'm
So
willing to like basically use and lose Hassan. Like if it's just like, hey, he's gonna actually help us like win an election. It's like, okay, like I don't want you to win though. I'm still gonna like primary the fuck out of your candidates, but you know, like I'll take it, right? Like we'll caucus for this election. Sure, that happens all the time. As I said, like I am willing to make like temporary alliances with socialists, even if I can recognize the danger of socialism to liberal society. Like just if there is a bigger threat, like that could be true. You know, there could be something significantly more immediate than socialists, which right now there is.
I think
Oh,
you were
Well,
saying
let's
social.
let Irrelevant go in a second.
Yeah, so what I
Irrelevant,
wanted to bring up is kind of what Charlie was getting at, and also kind of what I was trying to get at earlier, is if we agree again with these like very rather radical socialists probably not being healthy for like the current movement, especially with like a nationwide threat like Trump looming. Should we be directly targeting reasonable socialists and signal boosting them? Or are we just assuming that even reasonable socialists in this ecosystem will become more radical? So we should just abandon
I will give you,
like
I'll give you my answer,
working on them.
Irrelevant. We should be targeting and platforming liberals, not socialists, right? We
I
should
mean,
be
I agree with that.
targeting
I'm
and
obviously
signal
going to want to
boosting
platform my
liberals.
guys. Like, yeah,
Yeah, but
I'm
wait,
willing
what
to
do you mean
caucus
by-
for the
If
socialists. but I
socialists
my
want
guys
to
win.
vote for us, more power to them. I'll take their vote, but I'm not going to court them. I'm not going to signal boost them to say, "Oh, look at this is the good boy socialist who's on my side." No, if we want to be a liberal party, let's be a liberal party, and I do want to be a liberal party. So we platform.
What do you mean
and
by
signal
liberal?
boost liberals.
what does that
so
mean to you?
free speech, free trade, free elections. That's what liberalism means to me, right?
Okay, do
So
you think
people
that
who are
the
pushing-
socialists that we're talking about are opposed to those things?
Yes.
They're opposed to free trade, very much
Okay,
so. Yeah.
hold on.
And sometimes
Well-
free speech, depending on the person.
Yeah, free speech almost always.
That's iffy.
And they're incredibly isolationist. They're like, we should not be involved in like any other country. They're like anti-globalization in a lot of ways. Like these are things that I don't agree with. But
They're very
Yeah,
MAGA. in a
but
lot of ways.
Wick, I don't want to platform them insofar as making our candidates start saying stuff like that. Because like I said, those ideas are poison to most voters. But I do want to absolutely form coalitions and say, hey, like I know you want no free trade, but however, you want Medicare for all, right? Hey, help us get elected. We're going to push for a more progressive policy. But right now, their strategy seems to be, well, you're not giving me what I want on Gaza and Medicare for all, so I just won't vote. So it's like, okay, well, you're useless then. There's no point in forming a coalition with you.
Nothing you can give me. That's pretty
Well,
much
I mean,
what I'm
that's
saying.
that-
It's like,
well,
yeah, I
that's
can
the elephant in
caucus
the
with you,
room,
but I'm
right?
not going to like signal boost
Well,
you.
that's
Like,
that's the elephant in the room,
Like-
right? Like the
Mhm.
Gaza. Look at the crystal ball interview with Slotkin. If you're
Like-
not on the right side of Gaza, it doesn't. None of the policies doesn't matter. That's the omni cause.
like,
Well-
I think
that's it.
it's
No,
like
that's not
you need
true.
to think about the. It's also it isn't true because again, I am very, I'm very anti-genocide, and I have personally
Whoa.
just felt very
Okay.
horrified. I know, wow, shocking statement. I've just since it began have felt horrified by Israel's response to Gaza, and I do think it is extremely distressing to watch children die and starve and go, oh, my tax dollars are going there. So I think that, but again, that is also a complicated issue because older people are more likely to be like, for some reason we love this. It's still like I just don't think. I think it was not a good idea to be so pro Israel. I don't think it was.
Hold
so
on,
good
Wick.
for them to do that.
Wick, why do you think I'm leaving the free trade thing. So just really quick, I think free trade, I feel like you treat some of these things as like they're like gods and you worship at their altar and they can never be touched. But the reality is free trade is bad in a lot of ways, right? So that it does make sense to
Wait,
have policies in
wait,
place.
don't say cuz. What do you mean? What do you mean it's bad in a lot of ways?
Yeah.
Well, I mean that what Democrat socialists tend to favor and socialists generally tend to favor isn't just like no trade. They typically will require, they want to require that the people that we're doing trade with and the corporations are doing trade with or doing business with have some kind of standard for human rights, right? Aren't using
that's
slaves
not-
like we.
That's not
So
anti-free trade. That's
I
humanitarian rights.
understand. But hold on, but that's they call that fair trade, right? Which is opposed to free
socialists
trade,
are
quote unquote.
protectionists in a
Whereas
lot of
whereas
ways.
Wick would say, hey, yeah, let them use the slaves on the shrimp boats because that's free trade. Like,
But
I would
no,
disagree
a
with
lot of socialists are
Is that
just
what Wick would say?
Yeah, Wick, wait,
is
would
just
you
like,
say that?
What?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
No.
get those fucking
Socialists are
guys
just
working.
like when I say free trade, I'm talking about removing obstacles such as tariffs and other things that prevent trade, free trade of goods and services amongst borders. It's basically the reason it's a liberal value is because why should the government tell you, the consumer, who or what you should do business with and buy from? It's your money.
That's what I mean.
Be able to spend it with whoever you like, right? That's the liberal kind of individualist value.
Yeah, and opening up those
Socialists are
relationships
generally-
allows us to put pressure on their governments and say, hey, you need to improve the situation here, rather than just say, well, okay, we're just not going to buy from you. We're all going to increase prices and only do this internalization, isolationist thing, and then you can do whatever the fuck you want.
That's not what I'm saying.
Right, well,
No,
you're saying it's like a dichotomy
hold on,
between like human rights and free
no,
trade.
but it's not that. So Wick mentioned tariffs, right? So tariffs can be, I think they have been used historically to pressure other nations to adopt policies that favor us, right? And I think that socialists probably want to use them in the same way. They say, hey, yeah, we're not going to have total free trade and all tariffs. We're going to impose tariffs. And if you want to do, if you want to trade with this country, do business with us, it's going to be much more expensive for you until you come up with some kind of standard for workers' rights.
Look, Bernie, I'll use Bernie as an example, right? And he's advocated against he's advocated for protectionist policies. The mindset is, well, we want to make sure that the American worker gets first dibs and the American worker is protected, and he sees free trade as giving too much competition to the American worker, which overall hurts the American worker. And that's kind of the mindset through. I just reject that.
Do you disagree with
I don't
that?
think that's true. Yes, I do think that the American worker is better off, right, with free trade. The American consumer is better off with free trade. I think that tariffs and other things can be used in a very targeted sense. But like for national defense reasons, I think tariffs are fine, right? If we wanted to tariff steel from China in order to protect our national interests in certain ways, okay, on very targeted, limited tariffs, I'm fine with that. Like I'm not a pure free trade guy, as in no tariffs ever. But I think that generally free trade and moving more close to free trade is going to make people wealthier in America than it would otherwise.
Well, I mean, I think
I disagree with most of that, but
wealthier,
yeah, go ahead.
but also, like, I mean, I do think that we need to think about the environmental cost of such a thing. Because again, we have seen, the tolls that industrialization has taken on the world. And I'm not so sure, while I think it is extremely convenient that I can just order some bullshit off of Amazon and it's made in China and I get it immediately, I do think that this is going to be a very short window in time in which this is possible before the burden on the environment and on our resources becomes too great. Again, I do think at some point we need to curb the excesses of capitalism.
Charlie, I agree, and that's why in an ideal world I'd be an eco-terrorist, but unfortunately I don't think that's like anywhere within the Overton window of what we can actually do about it. So we just have to like get free trade to get our economy into a place where we get a bunch of Democrats in power who then have the technology, infrastructure, and ability to revolutionize green energy, because otherwise we can't just like tell people to turn their factories off. Because as much as I wish we could, because I do all hate all this plastic crap and human rights abuse, it's just not realistic.
I also just want to say for the record, like, I am not pro-degrowth. Like, I think it's like neo-Malthusianism, and I'd rather just like tax the externalities that we're talking about. Like, if people put pollution in the air, tax the living hell out of it. But otherwise, I do think we can basically keep rearranging physical matter to keep producing more and more wealth.
Dude, I don't I'm just nervous
Yeah.
because like every scientist that specializes in this stuff is like, hey guys, we don't actually have that much time, so I'm
Oh no,
I'm
I agree.
nervous.
I just
I'm
like
nervous.
I just think that there's like a better approach than just like, oh, we should just shut it down. that
No,
more or
no,
less.
fair enough. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We need a very
No.
quick transition.
Like I think we can innovate out of it, and I think that probably is our hope. But
And
anyways,
the
Yeah.
best way and the most efficient engine to innovate out of our way out of anything is
Is
through free
markets.
trade.
And government investment. I think it'd be great.
True.
Can I,
That said, you
go ahead.
asked me like what are the principles of liberalism, and I think I gave you pretty good answers.
Yeah, I agree. Though I think that I would disagree about socialists, quote unquote, just being opposed to those. I think that it's much more nuanced than that.
They're
They
less
seem to
free
be.
trade, Doobie. It's like Bernie Sanders,
Yeah,
even who we
but
wouldn't even
with a-
call a socialist, is more protectionist. As they get more left, they are
I
way
agree
more
with that,
protectionist.
but
right?
hold on. So I agree with that, but that doesn't mean absolutely no free trade. It just, I think Bernie Sanders' policy was that he's opposed to things like NAFTA, which he thought hurt the American worker. He's opposed to the
Colloquially, we would call that
outsourcing.
anti-free
Yeah,
trade.
yeah, I understand. But that doesn't mean that that he's opposed to all free trade, quote unquote,
Yeah,
right?
he's not.
And I think that if it's true that these policies were detrimental to us and free trade, it does become detrimental, if not now, then in the future. I don't think there's any reason to call it like something we should hold on to. We should be open to adjusting our attachment to these things as they become more or less feasible. But Wick, I think that
the problem is every single nation that moves away from globalist policies is like one that fails. Like that's almost like the connective tissue between why any nation fails is cutting themselves up off from free trade and being able to share and get the most efficient thing from all these other places, which I agree has a lot of problems. It does make us outsource slave labor to places like, Vietnam and Thailand, and I don't like that. But I think that's unfortunately like the step we have to take to solve it. We can't just stop and like move away from it, and that's what Bernie does when he's like anti-NAFTA, anti-TPP. Like it's just not it's holding us back to try to get to a place that we can't get to from that direction.
Yeah, free trade's definitely gonna come with its cost, but it definitely has more.
Yeah, I agree. If we did that overnight, it'd be bad, right? But I don't think he or anybody would suggest doing that. But I really want to get to this Israel-Palestine thing that you mentioned with Slotkin, because I think it's really interesting.
Oh, no.
And I'm not going to get deep into the Israel-Palestine thing. Okay, I promise.
We've had like
it is
1,000
genocide. It's
debates on
bad.
that,
Okay,
but
but yeah, I hate Israel. To be clear, okay, I hate it more than most countries. I think any country on the planet. I think it's terrible.
we've figured
that being
that
said,
out.
Whoa, dude,
now that my
cool
stance
it
is
with the
clear,
anti-Semitism, buddy.
I hate Israel. Okay, to be clear. So now that my stance is clear, what I'm curious about, right, is so there have been massive swings against Israel in, I think, all parties except the Republican Party, but even among young Republicans, there have been massive swings. But in the Democrat Party, especially, huge swings at all levels, right? I think it's like something like 71% right now. Are more empathetic, or more sympathy for the Palestinians over the Israelis, and they are opposed to sending Israel weapons, right? And sending Israel aid, military aid. So, given that this is the popular what's the word I'm looking for?
Majority position.
The policy, not even majority, it's like vast majority. I think it's like over 70% now, I think. So vast majority of the Democrat Party feels this way. Why should the Democrat politicians, and why do you think the Democrat politicians keep voting to send money to Israel through like military aid? Like why is there that disconnect?
It just takes time,
position.
like to trickle up the primary chain. Like
It's-
you can't just like do it
nobody's going to the
immediately.
voting booth and not voting for these politicians because of their positions on Israel. That's the reason why.
Yeah,
Well,
do you
yeah,
think
it's
that's
also-
it?
It's also specifically on the Slotkin interview, which I actually do think Crystal Ball was very good at like grilling her and saying like, hey, like this is what the people want. Why aren't you following them? Why are you able to do this? And you'll notice like all these politicians will never say genocide. Even Bernie Sanders won't say genocide, despite going out and making bills that are like, hey, regardless of what you call it, we need to stop these bombs going to this country. The problem is we have an alliance with Israel. They give us stuff, we give them stuff, and if we start all calling it genocide, which it is, if the politicians start doing that, it's going to become this thing where like Netanyahu, we're going to start severing relationships in ways that probably would be good for the Gazan people, but would hurt like the relationships we have with the government. So they're trying to do like the soft, like, hey, like my friend who I found out is a terrible bully, like I'm trying to like ease you into not doing it this way, which is like the more progressive politicians are doing, and even AOC, like who voted for defensive weapons but is voting against the weapon shipments, like, is still not going to call it the G word. Or I think she might have in the past, but isn't using it. That's just like geopolitics, unfortunately. In the same way, like, we give money to Saudi Arabia while they do genocide against the Yemeni people. Like, it's just unfortunately how we have these relationships, but they're still going to soft push them. The problem is if you then call out people like Bernie, like, and excise him, even though on paper he wants exactly what you want, but he won't say genocide. That's also poison. Like, you need to be able to say, okay, well, Bernie wants what I want. I'm going to help him vote for this thing that's going to defund the militarization. But yeah, they're not doing that. So
Do you
Yeah.
think
And it has
that
happened to
maybe
AOC.
like the like people actively pushing politicians to make changes, even if a lot of it was, directed at the most progressive politicians, do you think that had no
Do you think that's
influence?
effective, Charlie? Like, so for the people who basically put red paint all over AOC's campaign office because she voted against a bill that would defund the Iron Dome, do you think that those advocates did anything
Well,
productive?
that's what I'm curious about, because I am seeing, we have seen a massive shift in the, Democrats' opinion towards Gaza. I mean, I think even Hillary Clinton was tweeting like, "Oh my God, the mass starvation of Palestinians is not okay. Israel must let, aid through." Like, I don't know what the, why that is happening. Like, what is the cause of the shift? Is it that the, Democratic base
it's
has
because the
softened up
starvation has
politicians?
become incredibly difficult to ignore. And before, Israel had the shade of like, well, Hamas was in those buildings. Well, like, sometimes we might fuck up. And now it's like, okay, we are seeing civilians being gunned down at unprecedented rates. They're starving at like ways that like could only happen if you're withholding this aid and you're not giving legitimate enough reasons. It's like, it's gotten so bad that they can't ignore it. Which is like
Okay.
yeah,
And it's been
shouldn't
going
have
on for like
shouldn't have
months.
in the first place. But it's like, yeah, it's like, it's so bad that even Trump's like hearing Netanyahu say there's no starvation, and he's saying, well, my people are showing it to me. So yeah, it's just the severity of the problem is escalating.
Okay. But do you think,
Right.
like, maybe I do think that, like, people, I don't think it's bad for people to push politicians to to vote for policy that they like. Now, do I think red paint all over AOC's office is the most effective way to do that? But no, maybe not. But I do think that politicians are public servants.
Yeah.
And I do think that maybe, like, sometimes intense pressure is good.
Sure, but we
Even
have
if
to
it's obnoxious
understand.
and disruptive.
No, I don't disagree. I also want to pressure my politicians to do things that what I want. But we have to understand, and I think what people forget is that the politicians are making decisions that their voters or that they think their voters want. So while people may answer a poll one way, when they get to the voting booth, they're doing something different. I believe that politicians, with some exceptions, okay, do what's in their best interest and do what they think is going to get them a chance to win their election, as well as largely they try to be moral actors. And maybe I'll get shit for this take, but they tend not to just be amoral assholes, at least on the
On the left side,
in the
we could just say the
aggregate,
right
on the
wingers are
left,
immoral assholes. We'll all agree here, right?
on the left, right?
Yeah, you kind of got me there.
But I think that, yeah, I think the pro-Palestine people just have to realize that while, yes, a lot of people are seeing what Israel does as extremely bad and extremely evil in many cases, they don't want to defund the Iron Dome. They don't want to entirely isolate Israel, right? Because Israel's more than just its government. It's more than just Netanyahu, right? There's tons of Israelis who do not like what's going on, right? And want to kind of tone it down. And that's what's happening is, while yes, it's okay to pressure your politicians, you have to realize that other people are pressuring them in other ways. And sometimes your pressure just ain't it.
Okay, but
That's
Wick, I
fair.
think that you're incorrect. Okay, 'Cause
Maybe.
the when they talked about when they polled military aid on the Democrat Party, it wasn't just like aggressive military aid or like weapons to like bomb Iran or whatever the fuck. It was all military aid, including the Iron Dome, and that was still heavily favored by Democrats by like a big majority. So I agree with you. I think that the Democrats are like and all politicians, they will go where the money is when they can, when it's not going to be too detrimental to them, like and to their like chances of reelection. Just like Manchin did, by the way. I was going to say this earlier, but if you look at the polls for the BBB in his area, right? They supported it, right? They were opposed to his opposition, but they didn't vote against him, or there were no challengers that could come up and get rid of the guy. And he gets party support when he does run for re-election. So there's nothing they can do about it. They just vote for the Democrat, right? And he can get away with it.
Well, if it was their single issue voter, they'd vote for the Republican. What do you mean? The point is that isn't a big
I'm not
enough
talking about
issue for
single
them
issue
to.
voters.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Talking,
Is like
yeah,
you're
these
like,
people are
okay, they
Democrats,
wanted
right?
the
They want to vote for
BBB.
Democrat, but if the Democrat is doing this disgusting shit because they know they can get away with it because nobody else is going to be able to replace him, well then that's a bad thing. We shouldn't want them doing that. Which is why these types of people are the cancer within the Democrat Party that hurt the base and de-energize the base.
Wait, but Doobie, you just said he voted against the BBB, which is, in my opinion, a good thing. So even if his constituents are like, well, we don't like what you did on this thing, but we'd rather you vote most of the way you vote most of the time, otherwise they'd be voting for the Republican. Isn't that what we want? We want him to vote, at least in the most part, against Republicans?
Yeah, hold on. I don't think that's good enough. I think you want somebody.
I don't think it's good enough, but his constituency seems to be even on some issues further right than him. So if this is the best we can get from that area, why not take that rather than the Republican?
There's no reason to think it's the best we can get from that area. So if we know that his constituency, was opposed to his opposition right there, and we got some other person, right? The Democrat Party groomed some other person, supported them, pulled support from Manchin, right, and supported this other person and said to primary him, who was to the left of him on that issue, right? Even if it was just that issue, right? And attacked him on just that issue and was aligned with him everywhere else. It seems like that kind of person would probably win there.
Wait,
right? But
how?
rather than
if he's to the left on the BBB, which they all oppose.
Hold on, do you think someone to the left of Manchin could win a general election in West Virginia?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to West Virginia, man. Like, I think Manchin's almost about as good as you're going to get. You might get slightly better, but it's like you're going to have to pull him out of thin air.
The majority of his constituents were opposed to his opposition. They supported it, right? They wanted him to vote.
So they're more right than him.
Hold on. What are you saying?
If he opposed the BBB, which is a democratic position to oppose the BBB, and
no, I think you're misunderstanding me.
Maybe I am. So if you're saying they opposed his, okay, go ahead.
They were opposed. They supported the BBB.
Okay, BBB. Hold on. I see the disconnect. BBB, big beautiful bill, or BBB, build back better.
Build back better.
Oh my god. Okay, I thought you were talking about the big beautiful bill. I was like, Jesus Christ. Okay, no, my bad. I thought I got the wrong BBB.
Okay, no, it's okay.
Fair enough. Now that we got that cleared up.
Yeah, they need to stop using the BBB thing.
Because I was so appealed. What do you mean he voted against the Build Back Better bill, and that was a good thing? I was like, what? But I wanted to hear you out. But no, you were talking about the big beautiful bill, which is different. But go ahead.
Soy Pill's a blue dog Democrat.
Yeah, so again,
I fucking hate him.
I was just surprised. I was like, oh, well, okay, you're anti-Build Back Better. Okay, well, let's hear it. I'm curious, right? But
yeah, so I think people like this, right, who are, I think, vulnerable on those issues, if the party actually did what the Republican Party did in that they took support from them, supported primary challenges to them because they weren't left enough, quote unquote, or weren't Democrat enough for the party, and pushed people who were aligned with him on just about everything else, but on that issue that was popular with his constituents, that was opposed to him and could criticize him on that, I think there's a good chance that he could win. But
okay.
If
that's the case, then I do agree.
The Democrats want to play it safe, and I can understand this, right? So they don't want to do that because there's a risk that the person they support won't be popular, and they'll have full support from Manchin, and the Republican will win, right? So I understand them wanting to play it safe.
Retired, didn't
but
he?
I think
I'm pretty sure.
Did he retire? Did I miss that?
Or he's planning to, maybe. Let me look.
I hope so. Fuck that guy. Okay, I hope so, right? But if he wasn't retiring, if he isn't retiring, then yeah, I think the party needs to take more risks with these kind of people who are vulnerable, right, and just aren't willing to play ball with the party, i.e., Lieberman with Obamacare, right? I think if they dealt with the problem of Lieberman years before, he wouldn't have been able to take Obamacare in the way that he did.
Okay, so he changed his
Yeah,
registration to
independent in May.
independent
Yeah.
in May. Okay. And he announced he's not going to run for re-election.
Oh, thank God.
So if anything, now would be the time to do what you're explaining, Doobie. It's not
Yeah.
happening right this second.
Yeah.
So
Because there isn't like an entrenched dude already like running on the Democratic ticket.
And look, the primary will decide in West Virginia on what they think that the voters will want. But this idea that, like, again, Republicans did this, or MAGA specifically did this with Republicans in 2020, 2022, et cetera, where they really pushed in the primaries for a more MAGA candidate because they wanted someone more close to MAGA values. And the ones who won the primary overall, for the most part, lost in the general because the general elected didn't want that shit.
then Wick, don't
They
you think
didn't
that was
want a more
primarily due to
conservative-
like the Roe v. Wade backlash and the fact that if you aligned yourself with
That was
MAGA
a
and
large
Trump,
part
that
of it,
was
but it
like
didn't just happen.
attached to that?
I'm not just talking about 2022.
Well, I
I'm talking
am.
about 2020.
I don't know about
right? I'm
2020.
talking about, okay, like when Roe v. Wade was still a thing. Okay, the general electorate does not like, in general, extremists, and so
I'm not
they will
talking about
vote
an
against them.
extremist.
Well,
I'm
they
not
do.
I'm not talking about pushing
they,
extremists.
like,
I'm not suggesting that.
this
I'm
is
not talking about pushing. I'm sorry. Just really, I'm not talking about pushing somebody who identifies as a socialist or communist. I'm talking about pushing somebody who's center left versus like a fucking right winger pretending to be a Democrat.
Hold on, generic plays. Did we lose the seat already? Was there election? I don't. Hold on, let me look. It's been a while.
Is it not true that oftentimes, if you don't use the word socialist policies tend to pull very well across party lines, especially with the working class? Is Appalachia?
Somewhat.
I'm West Coast. I'm sorry. Appalachia is West Coast or West Virginia is It has the Appalachian Mountains in it, right? Which means
Yeah.
likely a very, very poor population. Now, if you just like, I mean,
Yeah, we have
Soypol has
two
talked about
Republican
this.
senators. Hold on, just real quick. Jim Justice and Shelley Moore.
Yeah, Jim
Capito are the
Justice
senators from West
flipped Joe
Virginia now.
Manchin's seat in
They're
2024, to be clear.
Yeah. So that didn't work, right?
Wait, how do you know they did what I'm suggesting? Who did they support over Manchin? Was it an extremist? I doubt it.
Well, Manchin didn't run, so they didn't like primary him.
It was
The
I know, but
Democratic
who did the
candidate-
Democrats support in that
Mooney,
race?
Alex Mooney. I don't know his politics well enough.
But I mean, what I'm saying is, like, I feel like you can. Soypil has talked about this. If you don't use the word socialist and you don't focus on social issues like trans stuff, race stuff, gender stuff, like a lot of working class America will go for socialist progressive policies as long as you don't call them socialist. Would it not be possible to have a progressive politician in a red area as long as they say things the right way, phrase things,
Yeah.
in a sneaky way? Would that not be a
I mean,
possible-
ironically,
guys,
Trump.
I don't
I think.
know.
Well,
Ironically, I think
you-
that Trump actually supported policies that we typically consider to be socialist, quote unquote, like universal health care. He was pushing universal health care on the campaign trail when he first got elected.
He
I think he was just kind of saying whatever, though. But more to
was.
Charlie's
I
point,
agree.
Bernie
He did
Sanders
say that we
polls
should have
well.
universal health care.
Bernie Sanders polls well despite the socialist moniker because of the way
Hmm.
he phrases things and lifting up workers. Like, he polls well with Republicans even. And I don't think that's them trying to be like, oh yeah, elect him so you'll lose. It's like, oh no, this guy seems like a solid character. I don't love everything about him. Like, but I don't think you could win an election that way because they're going to side with a Republican person over the Democrat unless things are so bad with the incumbency that they need to vote for whoever else.
Oh, why would they?
Why would they vote
hold on.
Republican?
Do you mean like the Republican? Or
If you're a
the-
progressive in a red state saying, hey, here's
I
these
see what you're
populist policies that they might think are cool, they're still going to vote for the Republican because the Republican appeals more to why they're red in the first place, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with that. Unless there's like, massive issues, maybe after Trump. Who knows?
So
Yeah, some
just
weird
real
flu.
quick, Democrats do win in red states, right? They do, right? Sam Sutton just won in a deeply red New York State Senate district. Okay.
Yeah.
We've had what was it? Kentucky had a Democrat governor for a while, or maybe it was a mayor. I forget exactly. Right. Wish we had Josiah. He could give us the rundown on this. Pondering Politics is the man for these kinds of things. But yes,
Is it Bashir?
it might be.
Is that
But
governor of Kentucky? Yeah.
but they are pretty solid Democrats, and they win in these deep red areas But how do they win? That's the question. How do they win? What issues do they run on? It's not super socialist progressive stuff. That's not what they run on. That's not what wins in these areas, right? But the problem we're seeing nationally is that a lot of people will be called rats, snakes, etc. Look at what they did to Manchin. I think the way that a lot of the progressives
Funk
treated
Manchin.
Manchin was horrific. Manchin was
Gross.
holding down the Senate for us in West Virginia, and they just shit on him because he was voting in the way his constituents wanted. And I think
He
we need to
wasn't though.
start
I
making-
just explained that he wasn't. Like
Just
70%
to
of
be clear,
his
you said
constituents supported that thing that he was opposing.
you said one like policy. Obviously, like politicians represent like bundles of policies, and like even if they do want him to go more on the left on some things, probably in general, Manchin was roughly representing the interests of the people of West Virginia because he was getting reelected over and over and over again, right?
Right, and then they
was like a
elected
very long-
Jim Justice, so it's like they clearly wanted to
Yeah.
move even more right, I guess. Like,
Yeah,
unless you
more
could,
likely.
like, sure, this is like a non-falsifiable thing. Like, if God, who's the frickin' Democrat they ran? Was it Elliott? Glenn Elliott? If Glenn Elliott had been more progressive, or if Glenn Elliott had supported the BBB, the Build Back Better, that maybe they would have elected him, I guess. But like, I'm not even sure because I'd have to look into what Elliott had ran on. I'm not very familiar with this election.
Yeah, the problem is we're
Testicle
also talking about
Johnson
like a
for
nameless,
$5.
non-existent candidate. Oh, sorry. Go.
Testicle Johnson for $5 says Charlie is correct. People already support quote unquote socialist policy, depending on how the question is asked. People are too dumb to understand what they support. I hear this all the time, right? But
A Wick watcher that likes me? That's crazy.
look,
We
I like
found one. Actually,
Charlie.
wait, that was Testy. He was in my chat right now.
Oh fuck. Okay, so it's a Shenandoah bit.
No,
Damn it!
Testicle,
I was
Testicle
like,
Johnson is a
whoa!
Wick watcher. I know that name.
That is true.
Yeah, he watches us all. It's a
And
Shenandoah
when I look
is
at the
a
Wick
Wick
chat, they're
orbiter.
like, "Can you tell
I'm a Wick
Charlie's
orbiter,
just a
true.
stupid bitch?"
True.
I'm like,
I'm a Wicker,
"Oh."
No,
as
we
they
like.
call him.
Yeah, you can use the hard R. It's your word too.
Oh yeah, shit! I didn't think that. Fuck.
But yeah, like I hear this all the time, but the how the question is asked is doing a lot of heavy lifting there in this, right? So yes, depending on how you ask the question, you can get people to answer all sorts of ways in a poll.
Yes,
I
of
tend
course.
to look
I
at
agree.
I tend to look at how do they vote, right? What are they actually voting for when they vote? Who are they actually voting for? What is true is that if you take a single issue that is more progressive, oftentimes it can win in even very deep red states if it's a direct ballot initiative. But these people won't vote for progressives or socialists. They just won't, right? So they
Yeah,
might.
Yeah, but
vote
you
for
don't
a
even
policy-
need somebody who calls himself a socialist, right? So like,
Yeah.
Wait,
when I say
Doobie, before you respond, I have to read this because I just found this and I wasn't familiar
Sure.
with this. This is what Glenn Elliott lost on in 2024 in the Manchin Senate race. So he said, top 3 issues, according to Ballotpedia: restoring women's reproductive rights is a top priority of my campaign, strengthening the middle class, and healthcare is a right and not a privilege. So he's campaigning almost on Medicare for all in a more progressive way in Manchin's district and losing to this Republican guy. And it's like, yeah,
much
like
do you lose by?
Probably because of probably the reproductive stuff. I'm willing to bet it was the reproductive stuff.
Maybe. How much did he lose by? I'm real curious.
it was 68 to 27%. It was like
Okay, so
he was just
he got
demolished.
BTFO'd.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Jesus
even a
fucking
close
Christ.
election.
Christ.
So it's
was-
like
that
what was
was,
what was the Democrat turnout in that election versus the prior election? You know,
I don't know. I don't. Have
I'd
that
be
data.
very curious to see if there was a massive decrease in Democrat turnout because they'd been de-energized by what happened with Manchin, which is not.
As I understand it, aren't like midterms almost always like dominated by Democrats right now? Or are we talking about like the 2024?
This is 2024, so this was
Oh, my bad.
Manchin's seat was up, I guess, because he
My
stepped
bad.
down.
Yeah, I'd be very curious to see that.
I just don't know. Off the top of my
So-
head, so.
So like, I think
We all do
when-
this for a living, by the way.
maybe-
Yeah,
look,
so like, I
I-
think. Hold on, I'm a hobbyist. Okay, I don't stream. I'm not a streamer.
Okay,
Fuck you guys.
Wick
just
is
come on
too
here
lazy to
to
buy
You're just a
YouTube
landlord.
Premium.
Which is
Man,
somehow
I was
worse than
here
a
to
streamer.
talk about socialism and
filthy
liberalism,
capitalist.
and we have gone, we have transferred into another land at this point, right? Okay.
Well, I
I'm
want to drag us
sorry,
back to that.
Wick.
Wick.
I'm having an identity crisis. I don't know
We're
what I stand
again,
for anymore.
we're looking to liberalize
okay?
you. We'll get you. We'll get you eventually. Everyone will
All right.
go liberal in the end. Honestly.
I
Gross.
apologize that I didn't go full marks today. It's just
It's okay.
Wait,
a
so
rough
Wick,
week.
so when I think when people say that we should do outreach to like socialists, quote unquote, or progressives, or people like Hassan or whoever these big figures on that side of the aisle are for Democrats, for not even for Democrats, just on the left, right? I don't think they're saying that we should put forward. I mean, at least I'm not saying you should put forward socialists or people who call themselves democratic socialists or anything like this. Though I love Bernie, to be clear, I voted for him, but he's probably not going to be very popular in most of the country, right? I get that. I think what people are saying is that you should support policies that are already popular, that are socialist policies, quote unquote, because these and this would bring some of these people who are de-energized, who fucking hate the Democrat Party because they see it as a party for the corporations that has abandoned the worker, right? So to energize those people, you support the things that are already popular, like universal health care.
But
right,
wait,
for
we
example.
just showed you an example where they did that and they lost by like margins, huge margins. Like in this district,
do-
by the way.
I don't
I
think
want
that-
universal
I
health
don't even-
care,
I don't even
but
think
you can't
universal
do this.
healthcare is like socialist, honestly. I mean, if fucking Hayek can support universal healthcare, I don't really think it's a socialist policy.
Well, in America, it is.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
in
okay,
America,
like,
when the government,
if
Like in
you're using,
America,
like,
it's weird.
Yeah,
but-
like the colloquial definition of socialism in America.
I
sure,
do think
yeah.
that
Yeah.
if when you're talking about, I don't know how religious
Colloquial.
West Virginia is, but I do think that the women's, like reproductive health care and reproductive rights, it polls really poorly with the religious, I think, the majority of the time. So I do think even running on that in a state that's very religious can like fuck you over. I'd want to look at that actually, like what,
yeah, the racist sound interesting. I'd want to look at that too. But so Wick, I mean, are you opposed to that, Wick? So if that's what people meant by reaching out to Hassan's crowd or socialist, quote unquote, was supporting things that are already popular with a base. No, that's not
If
my
you-
dog.
If you have a policy, right, that a lot of people like and they want to support it, and you want to run on that and you think you can energize space, sir, I don't have an issue with that. I am just skeptical, okay, of people saying this issue is super, super popular, and then when the vote comes, no one shows up to vote for it. That's what makes me skeptical of these
Well,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm like,
I think they're
is it
popular until you tell people you have to raise taxes.
popular?
Usually, like most of the time.
Yeah, Medicare
on,
for
but,
all
like-
polls really well, but then when you say make it single payer and abolish private, the polling wage like drops completely, and that's what
Yeah.
Doobie was saying. It depends
People-
on how you ask the question, and like I think if you educated most people on what like a Bernie platform would be, a lot of people might be in favor of a lot of those things, but unfortunately that's just not the
Yeah.
system we live in. So
Yeah, sortition. Just saying. But that's not this fucking debate.
Yeah, so
Let's talk about the vote.
I get so Wick, when you say these people don't come out and vote.
Well, can you give me
when
an
the
example
Democrats-
of something that the Democrats are not running on that you think they should, that you think has broad bipartisan or broad support that would energize the base? Can you give me an example of a policy that you mean?
Yeah, I think a public option for healthcare. It doesn't even need to be Medicare for all or universal healthcare, just a public option. I think it's extremely popular with the Democrats and I think with Republicans too.
Okay, I'm not opposed to that.
And things like free college, very popular with Democrats and Republicans, if I remember correctly. Things like this, right? That are considered to be extreme, radical. And anytime a Bernie Sanders comes up, right, or an AOC comes up and they push for free college, they're called radicals, right? And they're called far leftists in the Democrat Party. I think if the Democrat Party embraced these kind of people that are pushing policies that the majority of the base does support, and I think more would support if they learn more about these things and the arguments were made to advocate for them, I think they'd energize far more of these young people that you guys are always complaining are coming out to vote for you.
I don't know it, like everyone for my entire life, my entire 40 fucking years on this earth, 42 years on this earth. Every time people rely on the youth vote to come out, they lose. They're like, we're gonna
Yeah,
get it
you have to
now.
energize them.
We're gonna
Well,
we're gonna
but-
energize them. We're gonna appeal to them. We're gonna do
Yeah.
what we think is necessary to get them to come out.
and Doobie,
They
who
just don't.
yeah, who energized
Well,
them
who's
more
the
than
last-
Bernie Sanders, right? Like he didn't win. Like as much as I
Don't
want him
get
to
me
win.
started on Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Hold on, but Bernie Sanders did energize him, but I think Bernie Sanders was undermined by the Democrat Party, like from the start. I think they did a lot of work
Yeah.
to suppress him, suppress his message, to paint him as a radical, like from the start. So I
Sure.
think if he'd been treated fairly by the Democrat Party, I think he
Hold
would
on,
have
he
won
was
that
running in
primary.
a primary. What do you think the fair treatment for someone running in a primary is by their opponent, right? Their opponent's
I think
absolutely going to
not
try to
feeding his
tank them
opponent.
is crazy.
I think the and it's not. I will consider these people to be part of the Democrat Party infrastructure, like allies in the media, for example, who gave Hillary the debate questions, for example, who would ignore his speeches and stream Trump's podium for 45 minutes while Bernie was giving a speech, and cover Hillary's speeches for sure, ignore Bernie's and show Trump's. I think there was a coordinated effort in the Democrat Party and their media allies to push Trump because they thought that he would be easy for Hillary to beat, and to ignore Bernie Sanders, who was a real competitor, like especially like toward the end of that campaign.
To be honest, I probably think Bernie would have lost the general, but that's just me.
No, I disagree with that. He pulled better against Trump than Hillary did.
I don't know. If you can't win a primary, even if it's a rigged primary, quote unquote, I just don't think you're going to win the general.
I did hear a lot of you know, a good chunk of my dad's side is very Republican, and would never have voted for Hillary, but they said that they liked Bernie a lot. So I mean, that again, that's anecdotal. I
Yeah,
do
it's
feel
what we were
like
saying
he was
before. Those
Falsifiable.
populist messages do appeal across the board, especially if you kind of
Yeah.
generalize them. Just say, hey, let's lift everyone up. People like hearing that. Unfortunately, I'm willing to bet, I don't know where your dad lives, Charlie, but like he would still vote for a Republican in a Republican area, or more Republicans would vote Republican in the Republican area than would like flip to purple or blue because of a Bernie.
Can I
And
also
yeah, go ahead.
can I piggyback off you a little bit, Soypil? I also wanted to say earlier in this debate that like we can have populist messaging and still like be liberals. It is like totally possible to be
Yeah.
like, yeah, I want to like break the backs of rent seekers. I want to like provide like education to everybody and healthcare to everybody. I think that's like a totally fair liberal position that you could
Yeah.
take up.
That's
You don't
what we
have
were
to go
saying
like all the
earlier,
way to
Shen. Yeah.
social. I know. I just
I
like
think he
wanted
has
to
it
make
too
that
attached to
clear.
liberalism. Like so I mean, maybe answer this
I like
question.
it.
I was
I think
actually
it's cool.
so I watched that debate yesterday, Wick, and I was wondering when this would come up. Okay, so like, because I think that the reason people like Econoboy and Aaron and Hassan are incrementalists, right, is because they think that over time, and they think currently there are issues with the capitalist system, but they think over time those issues are going to become more extreme, more obvious, and more unsustainable. So you will need to move toward the decommodification of essentials, right? To to ensure that the people at the bottom of our society aren't just totally fucked over because the capital has been concentrated in such a way that we have this elite class that's able to buy up all our politicians, able to just own all the property in the country, and just force people to live, shittier lives than they would otherwise, right? If we just bit the bullet and turn our back on liberalism a little bit by taking some of this private property away. Like, so if it becomes a case, right, that AI, automation, I mean, I think it's true that the issue with housing prices right now isn't really these massive corporations buying up property. But if that did happen, right, and it was an issue, and they're buying up tens of thousands of single family homes in the U.S., like at some point, I think it does make sense to say, okay, well, this is unsustainable. You guys are being predatory, so we're going to break you up, and actually, we're going to take your private property. We'll give you some kind of exchange for it, but we're going to take it because it's better if it's decommodified.
In a hypothetical future where capitalism is failing, should we move away from capitalism? Sure. But the term late stage capitalism and people saying we've been living in late stage capitalism was in the 20s, the 1920s, where they coined that shit. People have been waiting for capitalism to fail for over a century. I don't think it's failing. I think people are incentivized to portray it as failing when I think that by the metrics that most people are better off today than they were 30 years ago. They're better off today than they were 50 years ago, right? Capitalism and the liberal society, at least in the West, at least in the liberal societies, right? I think that liberalism in America and capitalism in America has been a force generally for good, and there are flaws with it, and we should look to seek to minimize those flaws. But overall, my life today, right, is better off than my life would have been 40 years ago. That's just true.
Preach, brother.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Just saying.
So yes, in a hypothetical future where that's not the case, my opinion might change. but we don't live
So
in that
what do you
Yeah,
think about the
it's
New
Better
Deal?
off
Hold on.
40
So
years
wait,
like
ago.
asking if
do you
I
think the
material
New
would
because it's
Deal
agree
very
with
was
that.
different.
wait? Do you
You
think the New
disagree with
Deal was
that?
a mistake?
Hold on. There's two questions. Charlie, ask yours first, and then I'll deal with Doobies.
I mean, personally, my parents and grandparents were doing a lot better under capitalism than I am, and I guess most of my
In what way?
But yeah,
people
in
I
what
know.
way?
Well, shit's a lot more affordable. They're not saddled with the same amount of,
Wait,
student loan
Charlie,
debt they were.
I need to call you out here. You have a mostly in the capitalist market not very useful degree, and you're able to make ends meet by using the technology afforded to you by like streaming across the planet to a bunch of people like viewing you, because it's harder to market a master's
Okay, I mean
in
that's
fantasy
fair.
literature.
That's
Like,
fair. That is super duper fair. I
You also
understand.
live in a nice house that's not made of like corrugated steel.
yeah, it's like
Like,
it's like
yeah.
You don't have
This
lead
is
poisoning.
extremely true.
Like
I
you-
don't have lead poisoning. But I mean, even if we're not talking about me specifically, I mean, is it not true that people in, I don't know how old everyone is, like at least my age group, that would be young millennials, older Gen Z people, we're not meeting the same kind of economic milestone that are.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
yes, there
Absolutely
are
true.
problems of especially if you
that's
compare 20 years
true,
ago, especially
right?
like,
Like,
but
I feel
that's a
like-
more recent phenomenon with the housing market, with the job
No.
market, but like compared that to everything in and of itself, like as a whole, compared to 40 years ago, is better. That's just true.
Yeah, but that's just true because of like technology, right? Like that's gonna be
What
true.
drives
right?
technology?
So
technological innovation.
Yeah, I mean,
Capital-
there wasn't a lot
I
of
don't,
Oh.
think, I don't,
technological
I, hold
innovation
on.
in the
I don't think
feudal
that's
era.
true. Like I think that you are oversimplifying that. But I'm curious. So like, what do you think about like the New Deal? Like, do you think that was a mistake? Like, or the Great Society's
FDR,
program? Yeah.
the FDR New Deal. In some ways it was, in some ways it wasn't. There were certain things that absolutely needed to be done. For example, Social Security was a great New Deal program, and these other things. But there were negative consequences of the New Deal, right? I didn't come prepared to defend the New Deal or to attack it.
Well,
right?
you should. I'm asking you to not defend.
I'll
it,
defend the New
because
Deal.
this
I
is-
think if we
this was-
if we UBI'd and or just paid tens of thousands of American workers to dig holes and fill them back up, we'd have a better economy.
Fun fact on UBI, actually, we almost had UBI in the 70s under Nixon. Nixon
Yeah.
pushed for UBI.
Wow.
You know
Yeah,
why
Truman
we
was
don't
huge
have
on
UBI
UBI.
today?
People don't know.
It's because the Democrats at the time thought it wasn't enough, so they didn't vote for it.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
true.
I
I
doubt
love
it.
UBI.
Is that-
No,
is that
that's
really why?
absolutely true.
That is
You can
actually
look
like,
it up.
as I understand it, like a true story.
Damn.
Well, hold on. I
Tale
don't
as
remember-
old as
I
time.
remember reading that the Democrats actually tanked the Republican bills for like the civil. What would have been the Civil Rights Act? They tanked them because they wanted to pass it themselves. If I remember correctly. So I wouldn't put it past them to do something stupid like that. But yeah.
You wouldn't put it past politicians to be selfish. I think that's very wise
Yeah.
of you. Like,
I mean, it's just
so-
one of those fun facts that you learn, and you're like, well, shit, you know, like I wish they would have voted the other way, but whatever, right? Anyway, we are kind of winding down here. It is 8:00, and I do need to feed myself and my puppy. We've talked about a
Those
lot of
aren't
different things.
solutions to the same different problems, right? You're not gonna.
I'm not gonna eat my puppy.
Okay.
Don't worry. I'm not trying to.
Whoa!
That's that.
oh, I
Rick.
thought you were going for like the kink angle.
First
that,
of
like,
all,
Rick is a puppy.
Just because
Like,
the
I
dog
was looking
festivals
forward
in
to
Oh,
China.
no.
Can I just flesh out really quickly why I brought up the New Deal? Because I feel like you guys didn't understand why I brought it up.
Yeah, but then
Just
we're
real
gonna go to closings. But go ahead.
Sure. So the reason I brought it up is because the New Deal is often brought up by liberals like you as an example of where the United States abandoned its liberal values by decommodifying in some way or providing a public option for something that would otherwise be in the private sector. So with Social Security, they no longer need to go out and buy retirement products. The government provided a product, right? K through 12 education, similar kind of thing, right? So I think that you would agree, I hope, that, I mean, I think you did agree a bit ago, that there are sometimes it does become feasible or practical to decommodify things, to abandon liberalism, quote unquote, for the betterment of the society. And I think that's true now, but I think it'll become more true in the future. And I think that's what a lot of like incrementalist socialists, to be clear, I'm not that, but I think that's what they're pushing toward. It's just that, hey, things are going to get worse and over time. Go ahead.
Have you ever read The Grapes of Wrath?
Yes, I read it in probably elementary school. Then I remember seeing the
I kind
movie
of
in
remember
like high
this
school or
thing,
something.
but one of the desultory effects of the New Deal, right? Because we think of the New Deal now as just simple a thing that worked, but they tried
Yeah.
a lot of different shit, and a lot of it didn't work. And the Grapes of Wrath, there's a scene in the Grapes of Wrath where basically FDR had a bunch of people going in and just fucking destroying crops, right? Because they were
Yep.
looking to fix prices and things like that. And so while yes, in hindsight, we can look at the things they arrived at as pretty good, the fact that they did so much damage along the way um, is something to keep in mind. But finish your closing statement. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, so I mean that's all I'm saying, and I think that's what Hassan is saying. That's what Econoboy was saying yesterday. That's what Aaron Orbs Traderate is saying. It's just that um, as socialist policies, quote unquote, become practical or feasible, we shouldn't be religiously attached to liberalism, quote unquote, because I think eventually the argument is that it will become unfeasible or detrimental to the society.
Okay, thanks for being here, Doobie. I appreciate you jumping on short notice. Charlie, our existential crisis person, go ahead, give us your closing thoughts.
I know. I'm sorry I wasn't able to give you the heat you were looking for, Wick. Again, I've been suffering an identity crisis recently. Um, and also just feeling some general despair about, my feelings on what is possible for humanity in the future. Also, I watched part of the Destiny Econoboy debate last night and realized, I'm super out of my depth. I understand that Econoboy, I think, has like a PhD in economics, but I was still like, my God, I'm not following some of this. So my confidence was a little bit shaken. But anyway, I think Nordic model, maybe probably our best bet. Um, God, I don't fucking know. I had fun though.
I'm glad you had fun, and it's okay not to know things.
I know.
Look, uh, the thing I realized from the Econoboy and Destiny debate is I don't think Econoboy likes me. That's what I realized. But it is what it is. Go ahead, Irrelevant.
Yeah, so what I would say is, I feel like there was quite a settlement about very uh prolific, like staunch socialists and stuff, but I feel like there was still like not as much resolution as I would have liked about more reasonable socialists, because I think there is really something to be said about pretty much socialists who are practically sock dems, but just like nudged just like one step more to the left. It is a significant step, but nudged one more step over there. I think there are reasonable people who don't go and say that we need to destroy every fabric of like the liberal world order in order to achieve their goals and their aims. And I'm not sold on the idea that I shouldn't really, really substantially work with these people, especially to get them to try to make them the prominent voices of socialism. Because if those were the prominent voices of socialism, I mean, I think we're cooking. But yeah. So yeah, that's my
Okay, well, thank you for
piece.
being here. Really appreciate you. Shenandoah.
Yeah, so as usual, I come with like 4 pages of prep and I never touch it, which I gotta probably stop doing. But I did at least enjoy the debate. I did have fun. I am gonna reiterate that I love liberal society. I think liberal society is a good society. I think it can be improved because, of course, I'm a Georgist and I'm a sortitionist. I think there are definitely better forms of liberalism out there, but I don't think socialism is necessarily the answer. I don't have a fundamental issue with social democrats. I often disagree with them, but that doesn't mean that they can't exist within a liberal society. I generally believe that socialists proper, like the people who want to socialize the means of production, are a legitimate threat to liberal society. And frankly, I'm not very interested in signal boosting them, but I would caucus with them a little bit as we take care of the bigger threat that is MAGA. And that's my opinion.
Well, thanks for being here. funny.
Thank you.
And look, prep, it's its own reward. $5 from Ben Riley to say, in upper middle class white mom voice, Econoboy isn't mad at you, just disappointed. Hashtag just read the Substack. Well, thank you for the $5. Go ahead, Soypill.
Yeah, things are fucked right now. My friends and family are suffering. All my government job family is being fired. All my illegal immigrant friends and family are worried about getting deported. ICE is being insane. Trans people are under attack. I will take anyone I can get to fight against that. If that's Hassan willing to be electoral, fuck yes, please get him on board. But he's not right now. And unfortunately, not being electoral is already going to hurt our chances because your millions of viewers aren't voting. Therefore, what's the point of having you? Because you also hurt us when you say insane things that turn off the moderate voters. So I think if Hassan's, lovers and all the audience can convince him to be more pro-electoral, please do it, because we need all the help we can get right now. Things fucking suck. And I will literally let the communists walk on my back to the voting booth if they're going to vote. So please, let's actually get
Would you
something
let
done. Let's
Polly
kick
walk on your back
Tolly walk on my back to vote for
To the
Trump?
voting
Absolutely not.
to vote against
No,
Trump?
I would drop Tolly off in the back, and actually no, that's voter suppression. I'm about to say. I'm not going to say what I was about to say. So anyway, I think that we need as many votes as we can get, and that if that means working with socialists, 100,000%, I will work with the socialists. I will work with the most far left radical people if they're electoral, because in their eyes they're getting what they want, which is Democrats in power, which they can then push left, which is something I want to do. And in my eyes, I'm getting MAGA the fuck out of office. So please, 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 please do everything you can to mobilize your bases to vote, because that's what actually fucking changes elections. And if you want to be more radical, do it. Just wait until the Democrats are in power.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here. Soypill's always a pleasure. Charlie, always a pleasure. Doobie, thanks for coming. Shenandoah, yeah, I'll always like you. Irrelevant, like you as well. And I like you too, Doobie, don't worry. But we're
Fuck
going to
you,
raid
bud.
out into Shenandoah, and I guess I'll see you guys, I don't know when, man. Like,
Maybe
will I
this
stream next
Sunday.
week?
I need to message you about that, Wick.
Okay, well, maybe a Sunday stream. We'll see, right? Might be a special Sunday stream, but we'll find out. Okay, with that, wave bye-bye, everyone.